And with the new structure we have. Lindsay is also on the committee, who's not here.
She should be here. I'll motion to Troy be the committee chairperson for this meeting.
Okay. You can second that.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. We all good with that then?
Yes, so. Yeah.
Okay, all right, Troy, you're committee chair. All right.
Okay.
Chair says move on.
All right, so we have a couple main agenda items on here. Two in particular, the updated district dashboard and ACP plan modifications. I hope you guys read the memo because I'm asking for some direction because we have some contradictory approvals that happen there, and I need some direction over what you want from me to do. And then we just kind of have some data and celebrations and a little update on where we are with our district improvement plan. So I'll start on September 29th. The spring 2020 board data was released. I spent a little time talking about it. A couple of things I'll just point out is, first and foremost, where this data comes from is WISE- public portal. So I have the link here for the board. Also, FAY means full academic year, and that means students who are enrolled in the same district since the beginning part of the school year. So it's really important because sometimes you might see if the district puts out some data and there's a small percentage difference. I pull my data from WISE-Secure, which includes all students, not just full academic year students. But for the state of Wisconsin, anything public is full academic year students, and that's also used on the state report card. But again, I like to use the secure because even though kids weren't here all year, they tend to be with us for the following year, and I like to kind of see where they're at. So that's just a little FYI I wanted to give you guys with that. I did also put on the memo, again, just reminding you that kids can either be advanced. And advanced does not mean they're above grade level. Remember, the forward exam is a grade level grade assessment. So that means that if you're a fourth grader, they test you on fourth grade standards. They don't test you advanced to see if you can do fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth grade standards. They just test you on fourth grade standards. So it just means, for the most part, that you were able to do some of the depth of knowledge questions. Those are the higher level questions, 3 and 4. And then you can score more advanced. Then we have proficient, basic, and below basic. So when we're talking about the percentage of students that kind of pass the board exam, we're looking for the students that were in the advanced and the proficient categories. So way before Maria arrived here at Merton last school year, Ron always provided an update to the board that really looked at feeder schools and local K-12 comparison data with Merton. So you're going to notice I provided on here the proficient and advanced scores for all of our Arrowhead feeder schools, K-8. We looked at some high-performing K-12 local school districts and where did Merton fall with that. And then we gave some rankings by grade level for the Arrowhead feeder schools. So we're just going to take a little dive into this. One thing to notice on this report then, at the bottom are multiple tabs, as you see here, for each of those categories I just talked about. So first and foremost, you can see where Merton is comparable this year for the 2021-2022 feeder schools report. You might notice there's 4 categories on there. The top one is ELA, and you can see I highlighted Merton in yellow, so you can always see where we are in comparison to everything else. You'll also notice I have them in order from highest score to lowest score. So ELA, Merton came in second with a proficiency rate of 60, I can't see that from there, 69.9. Nice job. On math, I would say Merton found a 69.3 proficiency rate for the whole district. So this is again, all of the kids that took the test, regardless of grade level, how many proficient in advanced, that's what this sheet is. On science, we were second with an 81.7 proficiency rate. In social studies, I'll just remind the Student Achievement Committee, this was the new test this year, the new social studies board test aligned to the 2018 standards. And again, we were third at 87.6. The other graphs were where we were in the last 3 testing cycles. So you saw one from 20 to 21 school year. Then of course you have to go back. There was not a test in the following year due to the pandemic. So that's our 4 years worth of trend data. That is really going to matter when you look at the state report cards, which we will in November. That's going to go to the committee meeting, and I give an update on that because the state of Wisconsin uses a 3-year average. So it's going to average where Merton was like pre-COVID, that's still one of the years, and then the last 2 years, the one from 20 to 21 and 21 to 22. So it's 3 years worth of data that they use on our report card rankings, which, as you know, we had 1 year that wasn't as good as we would have liked, probably last school year in particular. We saw some data coming out from when we were still in the pandemic, and we were virtual every day with students that were either at home and had some students in person. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of 3-year average goes out. So overall, I think we did some nice growth last year for sure. What's a real good kudo in our hat is if we look at some of our high-performing K-12 districts, just in comparison, you know, Merton really hangs in there in overall proficiency rates. A lot of times we are the #1 position there, just a little bit in math, and I think we see a little trend on our math a bit and what we can do around that. But when we compare ourselves to the districts that you had in the past, again, pre-Maria, I don't know, Ron, how you picked the 12, how you picked these, but.
Similar demographics, some similar demographics in just neighboring schools.
Yeah. So you'll see where we are in comparison to Elmbrook, Oconomowoc, which often is places that people kind of look at when they're looking at our data or when they're building a home, Sussex. So I think this is a pretty nice telling story that we can tell our community when they're looking where to build. Merton, you know, obviously does a little better than some of our neighboring K-12 districts. That's kudos. Now, I will say this, they do have our high school for data in there. So, of course, ELA and math aren't part of the forward in particular, but science and social studies scores could be a little skewed because they do test 10th graders and our K-12 feeders in those 2 areas, and we don't. I mean, they take it at Arrowhead, but that data isn't part of the overall figuring out of these proficiency rates. Are there any questions on those first 2 tabs? No? Okay, so all these tabs, I'm not going to spend like too much, I'm just going to go through them. These tabs are just by grade level. Where Merton was in comparison to the feeder schools. So if we look in 3rd grade, where 3rd graders came in ELA and in math. Okay. 4th grade, remember 4th grade and 8th grade we test everything. ELA, math, science, and social studies. So you're going to see more data and information on those spreadsheets. I see a really nice consistent trend for Merton as we tend to do really well in the areas of science and social studies in particular. grade? Same, 72 on both of those. Sixth grade. Seven.
Why do you think sixth grade math as a percentage was higher than the previous grades?
You know, it's hard for me
Yeah.
because we don't have any data from fifth grade,
Yeah.
like math data or anything from last year that would give me kind of an inkling of that.
Okay.
If we did something in particular, we still use Envisions as our core math in sixth grade, so it's not that they have a different core.
Yeah.
Seventh grade. And eighth grade. When I look at like the last 2 years of data, doing this chart for both years, I think we see some consistent trends. Of course, our math tends to trend lower compared to our feeder schools at most. And I think we know that. We're going into a math review and we've been tracking that data for the last couple of years, even pre-pandemic. So that clearly is an indicator to us that, you know, our core is probably not quite meeting the needs that we would hope. So that, I think, is going to be a really important one in the review. From the state perspective, actually, at my area directors meeting last week, overall, third and eighth grade, those were two data places that they noticed statewide really struggled in proficiency rate in ELA. And I would say that was sort of our data too. For whatever reason, those grade levels, you know, third graders, it's the first time for a state test. The board looks different than the map, you know, just in logistics and what tools are available to them. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I think our new screener iReady is more aligned to like how the physical look of forward is than map was. So I think that might help our third graders a bit. Kids can drag and drop objects and things like that. Just when I think about like math, they make graphs in iReady. And in math, it's all kind of like, you don't have any of that movement. So in eighth grade, again, was just kind of a trend that people saw. But again, what I really would like to start seeing in our data is like consistency. And we're not really there yet. We're very cohort based, which means the grade level of the student seems to be, they kind of wherever they are, we grow them, but they're, you know, 1 year, eighth grade could be here, next year, eighth grade could be here. We want to see some consistency because that means that we're doing a guaranteed and viable curriculum for me, that all kids have, you know, the option to learn all the curriculum, and we have common teaching practices of how we deliver. So that's where I'm looking. I will say our data looks really much better this year. I'm really pleased with that. I'm really proud of our teachers because I know they've been working really hard at that because it's not really a reflection of me as much as the hard work that they're doing with their goal work and looking at some of those kids that were right on the border last year of making proficiency and what can we do. So, any questions about our feeder data or what we're looking at?
It's good.
Okay. I have to tell you, I try to, the minute it becomes public, I'm in there. Sometimes so is Ron. I'm like, get out of here, let me do my work.
We both can be in there.
I know. All right. So the updated district dashboard. So I brought this back to student achievement because we kind of approved the district data dashboard. And then in August, we made social emotional learning for 6-8 optional. So I wanted to come back and the social emotional learning is taking right into like our ACP updated plan with some guidance. But with this point, to just ask if it's worth and something we still want to keep on our district data dashboard. Because from our perspective, at least from the district, if we're not keeping track of all students on there and using it for trends, then the information we collect isn't going to be all that helpful for us. So I think it is, but the recommendation is based on the aspect that it would not create accurate comparable trend or cohort data through our K-8 system. And that whole data dashboard's about K-8. So just want to know if that can be something that we remove or you want us to keep on for just the kids that we have. The reason why I'm kind of just, it's an additional teacher workload because they will have to enter that data into something and, you know, we can save them some time.
Personal opinions, just take it out.
Okay.
My question is, if we're gonna keep the program, why wouldn't we track it? How do we know the program's working or not if we don't have
If
something
students
to?
are learning.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So for me, if we're keeping the program, making it optional, it's just great that parents have this decision. But I feel like if we're going to keep investing in this program, we should have some kind of metrics that show that it's working.
Right, so I'm not sure, like, Lindsay, how we could report that, because there wouldn't be a percentage that would stay true, right? Like, K through 5, that would be all kids 6, 7, and 8. Like, on the data dashboard, we try to go for, like, where's our goal, right? And then we would not know where all of our students would be on it. So, I don't, you know, my answer would be because it
I just
wouldn't.
don't even know how you measure it. That's, yeah.
Well, if you remember back, and I did some links into the memo, back in April when we were talking about this, I worked with the counselors and we kind of put these options together. Maybe you guys kind of remember these, like of how we could kind of begin to look at, you know, different options if we wanted it on the dashboard. So the option kind of that we talked about was that, you know, we had an implementation way where we would do classroom walkthroughs and make sure that teachers were delivering it. We had the second step student way. That's the one you're talking about, Lindsay. You know, right now it was the percentage of students that demonstrate proficiency on the assessments and tasks. We had the option of really looking at restarting PBIS and use some of their district tools that they have available for that. And then we talked about there are some places where you can use for some cell competency work. So there's a couple things there. Of course, some products are available. The Wisconsin Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is available to all public school districts, and we can modify that assessment, but what it does is it gives you warming data, like to what other schools had at that point in time. That's also a survey that Arrowhead administers, so that's one place that to collect data. And at that time, we thought, you know, the selection was to kind of, you know, possibly talk about the proficiency rating. So.
I just don't know how you justify any program without having any kind of measurements. Anything like that, it's hard for me to.
Well, we assess it, it's just we would be collecting it, requiring teachers to be putting it on a form, you know, additional steps. For me, it doesn't give me system-wide data, which is why I like it, right? Like anything I collect for the district dashboard would be something that I would be looking and saying, you know, kind of like what we did for math, like is something telling me that we're not quite hitting the mark with what we have.
I guess what I would say is it's very similar, maybe similar to art, music,
our STEAM, kind of our STEAM program, where we don't have a district data dashboard that highlights achievement. We would consider, since 6-8 is optional, we still are giving assessments and things. It just wouldn't be reported out on a district dashboard where the things that we're reporting out constitute all children.
So how would parents know, like, it's working? Because that's the thing we're talking about now, right? So how would parents have the information to understand the program better? I feel like all we talk about is transparency, and now we're taking something away that's not transparent.
I mean, in my full perspective, what goes on the district dashboard always, and this kind of goes back from the beginning, would be things that are like research-based that we want to find trend data over time. That's why we have that goal area. And it's hard for me to say, you know, in every other category, Lindsay, we're tracking and modifying that for all kids. It's hard for me to put like one thing in particular that we're not collecting information on all kids on. Because to me, that data dashboard is to me, I want you guys to like, that's an accountability thing, right? Like, that's like, Maria, that's a little bit of a snippet of how we're doing our job, how are things going. And some of those things, I want to make sure they're things that we're controlling. And again, I just don't want to give additional work to teachers if we aren't finding value. There's no way for me to say, we could track the learning, but in a normal world, I'd be sitting with counselors, we'd be talking about, do we need some support groups, do we need other things off of that data that I don't think is really what we're using it for, especially in the older grades. So. Not that I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, we're still going to give the assessments and tasks are important, but tracking it and reporting out on it is what I'm asking about.
I'd much rather keep the tracking and have more staff. Like if we have to hire somebody to help with the load or something like that, to me, it's important to know. Otherwise, we're running a program that is that's what we've been saying the last 4 years. We have no data on it at all. So that's just my point of view.
So maybe we'll circle back when Andrew comes back in. To see. Yeah. Or to you. Okay. All right. So our other thing kind of goes into our ACP plan. So as you know, I kind of said with the reducing counselor hours, we're going to bring this back because our timeline is a little off because we don't have as much staff. And since I was bringing it back, I really would like clarification on 2 action pieces in here that directly relate to our 6-8 motion things. In particular, I outlined that what the board motion was on August 9th. And then there's 2 steps. So I'm going to remind everyone, we approved the ACP plan. Then we made a motion August 9th about 6-8 cell competencies. But there's 2 things in that approved ACP plan I want direction on because they are cell competencies are in it. And one that's timely on here is, as Lindsay would know as the PTO president, we have a partnership with them with the Gales Institute. They were going to sponsor the transition workshops, and that's like a half day to almost a full day. It's like 10 to the end of the day. Transition that we were going to do 8-9. But it definitely in planning with Dan from Gales and with Kathy James, definitely in planning, these 2 action items are cell competencies. So I don't know which approval trumps the other.
I know when we talked about it before, we talked about making, and I'm not saying Maria, this is just as a PTO talking about it, that it was important that it's not a mandated thing too, that you can opt in or opt out, and then the parents would be able to see exactly what that day entailed, what it exactly meant. So it kind of seems to fall in line with the other things we have, that it's opt in, opt out option. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly or not.
The question that we have is if people already opt out of 6-8, like, does that include this?
I don't think she meant it as Kathy. I shouldn't speak to Kathy because she's not here, but the interpretation I had, it was not an SEL program. It was a transition program, just like
It is, yeah.
Steve would have for third, Becca and Steve would have
Yeah.
for third and fourth. It's not an SEL, it's a transition.
It absolutely, I would say in our planning, we would see it the same way.
Yeah.
The concerns are that I'm trying to be very transparent, that it's covering cell competencies. And so how we want to handle that, just because we're trying to finalize our planning, how many people, because they do small groups for this, so it makes a difference to their planning. You know, if I'm just gonna make this up, if we have 100 kids and only 60 are participating, or 40, or all 100, it makes a difference on their planning end, which is what they're trying to get through. Yeah, because I agree, I mean, that's why it's in the ACP plan, because
Right.
frankly, transition work is always been, that's the heart of academic college and career planning, that's why it's there.
The ACP is required by state.
We just need to know like that, and also our Explore course where we were gonna be looking and putting a study skills curriculum in, definitely falls within the cell competencies. So we just want a clear directive, so we're following what your intents were.
I don't know enough about the elective one, but as long as parents can opt in or opt out, I mean, you should have enough time to tell them this is what it is, and I mean, it's a great opportunity for our families to have. So my point of view is that one would be more transition, it would be fine, as long as parents had a right.
So then we would follow underneath that thought process, we would keep it just like our other cell opportunity with second step, as in parents would opt into it. That's what our ask.
Like my answer would be then if we're gonna allow parents to choose on this, my assumption would be parents that already assumed and opted to stay in cell. This is just something, but then it would be allowing our current parents that have opted out to opt into just this.
Okay.
Right, like that's what I
So
think.
But what happens if somebody that's in cell right now doesn't know how they
I mean, this is what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
It's getting very tricky for me to navigate what's in alignment with this.
So anything SEL would be, according to the motion, is opt-in, and that would be transition as well
No, it's
as.
opt-out.
What's that?
It's
The
opt out.
motion is opt-out.
Or opt-out, opt-out.
Yeah, right now.
Opt-out.
Right, so, I mean, the reason why I'm bringing this up, again, I want it clear, because I will tell you, just as is right now, I would be saying all of those families who opted out meant they opted out from this experience.
I would personally disagree with that.
Right, so
So-
that's why
We're talking.
that's why we're talking, because like I said, these action steps were already approved for all kids when we did this before you did the August motion. So I'm bringing it back to get clarity about
When is this going to take place?
that's happening at the end of the school year. We're looking at something at the end of May or beginning part of June.
Could we make it into, since it's, is it ACP? My glasses.
Yeah.
The ACP, can we make it something that we have a form, just like, the human growth and development, we send it home with every single person, they sign it and they send it back.
Yeah, it gets slippery because ACP is a legal requirement. We control part of the experiences that go in there. You know, so we wouldn't, in essence, have a transition for 8 to 9 outside of what Arrowhead offers.
But to answer your question, yes, we could do that. I mean, you can send home a letter that says, please return this.
I mean, as long as we state what we're doing
Parents can see it.
and see it, yeah, and that,
I will tell you right now, Deanne said, like, it's impossible for her to script out everything.
she can't get like the topics at least.
She definitely can get the topics, like,
I was gonna say, she
which
seems
is-
very organized.
Yeah, and I mean, she helped me make the list, just so you know. We had a meeting last week, Thursday. We wrote down the cell competencies she thought that she was covering on this document for you guys.
So as a parent, I would say that, this is as a parent, I would like to see, okay, these are the things that you consider the cell, and this is what it is, and the rest of it, just it's a transition day, like signing in and out, just like we do for field trips even, because, I mean, basically, you're going to Arrowhead, right? That's part of it?
No,
No.
Oh, it's
no,
all
this is
here?
on campus.
the Arrowhead, in the past, Dan has like partnered with the Arrowhead kids and they come physically here.
Okay, so like, I thought we were going there.
Yeah.
So as long as it's just clear and, I mean, that's my point of view. I mean, I don't know what Andrew thinks, but.
So to keep the same framework as, like, you would opt out. If you do not want your child to participate, you would opt out of it.
I prefer to send a letter in because the
Okay.
motion specifically said opt out. That's the board motion. So the way I would be reading that is we're going to send a communication home to the opt-out parents that says something like, you've opted out of social emotional learning in 8th grade. We have this opportunity coming. Here's the information. If you'd like to opt into that community, and let us know.
So why wouldn't we send it to all the parents though, even the ones that are in there? Like, wouldn't we want to just be consistent and say, everybody, we're opting in, or are you just automatically putting them in?
I'm answering in response to your motion, Lindsay.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to clarify so I'm following your motion.
No, I like the opt-in option. I'm just
Mhm.
saying why we don't do it for everybody, just all the way across the board. It makes the most sense that anytime we bring in any program, and I hope we're communicating with our parents. And it's a new program. It's a great program. I'll throw that out
So
there.
the parents, the permission slip has to come back.
Yeah, permission slip goes back, goes to all the parents, opt into this opportunity that we're providing.
Keep the growth and development side. Okay. I understand.
But maybe you can
Yeah,
help me.
I
I mean,
understand.
I'm trying to follow along with what their motion is. People have
Because your
already made
motion
their
is
decision.
opt out. Your motion is they can opt out. And now we're creating an opportunity where they have to opt in.
So it's a one-time opt-in for this opportunity.
But this isn't just South, I mean, there's other things incorporated into it.
I will tell you right now, from Gail's perspective, this whole day is going to be around dealing with social and emotional learning competencies. I mean, when you think about the transition to high school, what you're trying to unpack with them, it's definitely there.
I think it's an opportunity that all our kids can do, no matter where you are with the self. Like, let them all decide and opt in and out. It's not gonna hurt us to send out.
No, I think Maria's point is the motion was for all social emotional learning to be an opt-out, which means we're gonna assume you're in unless you tell us. So we would send the permission slip home, in this motion, in the motion that passed, we send the permission slip home with everyone and say, here's what it is. If you choose not to have your child participate, please check this box, sign this, and then have your child return it to the office or return it to the office. If we don't hear from you, you are here. You are in the program. Because that's what would that would go with the board motion.
But that shouldn't be sent out to all students.
No, it'll be sent out to all
Yeah,
students.
so that's
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah, it'll be sent out to all students to go along with the board motion. If you choose not to have your child participate, please sign this.
It's up to the parents to make sure they want it.
Correct.
They can send that
Can
back.
we
Compared
make
to-
sure it's, I know we usually send it home as a piece of paper, can
And we do it electronically too, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes papers don't make it.
We certainly can, yep. So we'll just follow the board motion and away we go. Okay, now that goes.
So, I
to-
mean, that's what I heard from Lindy's side. Andrew didn't chime in yet on
Right,
this. And
okay.
Troy, where are you with?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, well then,
Goes on.
regardless, so, okay. And then, the second piece of that is what we are gonna do, if you remember the ACP class, the academic college and career path classes that we have in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. As we redo math and the geometry, probability, and statistics part, the GPS goes away, we are gonna put a study skills curriculum in, like organization, study, work habits type of a piece. And the Explore right now is required, it's a required wheel class. So I just kind of put the competencies on there that we would be touching on in those classes. So right now, what that means is that's, like, we would really have to reopen all of our Explore work. Those 4 things are required. If we allow people to opt out from the organization and the study skills. And it matters because we're looking at programs now.
I have a question. This,
This is for
This
next
is for
Okay.
next year. This is
Because
for
we're
next year.
doing the geometry, probability,
Yeah, this
and
is for next
statistics
year,
this
as
year
we start to
because
plan.
in 7th and 8th grade, they do algebra. So that is, it was on our ACP plan to look at programs this year for next year implementation.
So I think the question is do you want us to continue planning, or as we think about preparing for the 23-24 school year, do you want us to consider organizational study habits, work habits, and things like that as part of our programming for all kids in the Explore, in grade 6 and 7, 8? 6, 7, 8.
so there's no way to make that an elective instead of Explore?
Currently, right now, ACP is the state requirement, so we're supposed to have a class. In most grades, what's typical in ACP planning is to teach these things. Work
They
habits.
all sound like very good things.
Work habits, study habits, right?
Because
And-
what,
Yeah, so, I mean, normally it isn't an elective. Normally it's something that we build in because we have the ACP requirement. I'm just bringing it back because I want to be very transparent that there's some competencies here and I don't know how we want to handle that. Because the motion was really broad in August.
because right now half of it is a junior achievement course, whether it be global marketplace,
The financial
Finance
piece, part
part
of
and things
ACP
like that,
is
yeah.
financial literacy. So that's in there, but so would be study habits. We also do some digital citizenship in there. Internet safety, those type of things.
I guess I'll give my opinion. I don't,
So this is both points. Where's this one?
This one is the top one here. We
skipped to the.
we went to the gals. This is implement, the common study skills curriculum.
Well, so what I'm hearing, it's mandatory anyways, right? So if we don't do this, are we gonna lose funding and things like that?
What's required is having an ACP
A
plan.
plan.
This particular bullet is very much in there
Okay.
of what a typical recommendation would be of what they should be studying in those grade levels.
So we're gonna have ACP. The question is this, are these topics things that we want to be in our ACP plan? Knowing that they're also SEL competencies.
most of our teachers incorporate a lot of this.
What we don't have, Troy, is consistent things. Everyone does note-taking different, everybody does different for how they help kids study, things like the curriculum would kind of solidify, like, common ways and vocabulary here at the intermediate school, instead of it being very teacher dependent. So we purchase something, like how do you take notes, how do you study for tests, how do you goal plan, how do you plan for a project that's due in 2 weeks without waiting to the last minute. That's kind of what that stuff is. Right? But we try to teach them some common things.
I guess I'm just a little confused with, like, to me, those are all common sense things that we should be teaching our kids. And I can see why they're, you can call them SEL things, but I also yeah, like good practices for kids. But are we looking at all our curriculum then that has SEL in it to them? Because it seems like we're focusing on these two, but what about like our curriculum that actually has SEL that's a different kind of topics in it? I'm just confused why this one is, I'm sorry.
And Lindsay, I'm sorry if I didn't set the stage, because the board approves the ACP plan, which is a requirement. Like, and we have to have it posted online. It's part of the state statute around education for employment, actually. Because we have to have that, I want to make sure what we have is clear and upfront about it. That's why I'm bringing these particular items, because right now I have two contradictory things, right? From the motion.
So
Because
you're
we
looking,
had these approved for all kids, like in the plan, and then we made a different motion. So I don't know as an administrator what I should do. Do I follow the approved plan? I brought these two because they are the ones that are most probably self-tied in that
I think
action
you
plan.
follow the motion, because that's what, the community members that wanted to opt out, that opted out, so it was that opt out.
so then you have to look for something else for.
Or it becomes a option for however many lessons. We can decide whether it becomes optional, say there's 10 lessons in there, so then those 10 lessons would become optional.
So they get part of the rest of the classes, they just would opt out. Not that I have the rest of our classes.
And Lindsay, from a 6-8 lens, when we take a look at the other content and the other opportunities throughout the curricular program from start to finish from a 6-8, we pulled out where we teach the SEL competencies. And that would be in these, as we think about ACP planning.
I guess I just never considered that they were.
Yeah.
And this could be just me, like, I thought prepping for learning how to study for a test and stuff like that was a general, not a
But
just
the
SEL.
issue is though, all the teachers are going to teach, this is what you study, this is what you take.
I think they say this is an option.
Yeah.
An option. This is an
Well,
option.
we don't teach many note-taking things, like when I think about some of the things that we taught, like everybody has a different way of where they tend. So we might teach 3 or 4 different ways of note-taking, and you find out what works best for you, right?
But don't teachers already do that? Kids have multiple teachers, they're going to tasks in class.
I can
I know
honestly
you
tell
can.
you, I'm not confident that we're all teaching multiple ways of note-taking. And I'll just really say a plug for kids that are at Arrowhead. Having these skills would be very beneficial to them. I'll say that. They don't do a lot of study skills work with kids. They expect you coming into that high school knowing how to take notes and how to study. Yep, it is. And it's a lot of lecture and being able to take notes. So I do worry. It's, to Troy's point, it's not that teachers aren't, but I think the whole idea of a curriculum, the reason why we wanted it in here is because everyone was doing something a little bit different. And it wasn't consistent, so.
I just,
I think we just keep it in there for now, you know, for those.
Yeah, I made up a number, yeah, I made up a number,
You know, or they want us, you know, send out a piece of paper and gotta come back, or, you know, if it doesn't come back, then
I mean, we can think of other opportunities too. I mean, but it's just something that I know our staff has talked about. And I know as we were starting to move forward with some of our planning, as we exited geostats and probability, that's why we wanted to start to kind of talk about it, because we're going to start to begin that planning pretty soon.
I'm sorry.
Do you have
I
any
just-
programs in mind that you could, I was saying, look at?
No, I would bring some in. There's, you know,
This is-
this can be a big thing or a little thing, you know what I'm saying? It could be a little small thing, or it could be, you know, there's some pretty robust study skills curriculum that you could, I mean, just knowing whatever we teach in that course. I mean, this is about 20 days worth of stuff. Where GPS is about half of our 45 days.
I'm just struggling because I didn't think prepping for the tests were part of.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I understand, that's why we want to talk about it, because
I like the idea of seeing like at least examples of it, to talk about it for maybe next time, so we can,
Bring it back next time.
yeah.
I just didn't want to spend time, to be honest, looking at things if it wasn't going to happen, you know, just trying to prioritize time. If we
Well, I
just
think
wanted
it's
to-
another good opportunity for the parents, that I see the point of the opting out, but I also see this as like, students do need help. Like, I don't want to take away an opportunity for people if that's what they want or need. That's like, my whole stand is that parents can decide what's good for their kids, and I don't want to step in the way of it. So if you could just show us general, you don't have to go in straight detail, like this is my recommendation,
Mhm.
or,
Any other schools in the district?
We can dig around a little bit, and give a little bit more concreteness to it.
Very few of our feeders have the robust elective explore experiences that we have here, right? There's not, so, all right, I'll just timeline it.
Okay.
I'll follow up, with Andersen and see what we get. All right. Thank you. All right, and last, hey, maybe we will be done early. Before I move to ACP, I should just ask, you saw my changes I highlighted in blue. So, I mean, here's the big thing. I have to bring this back in November for board approval, the ACP plan. So what I'm going to do, just so we're clear in this room, I'm going to remove these two items. They're going to be struck, the gals and the study skills, because they're not for all kids. So that's coming off the plan.
we're still offering if it's just coming off the plan,
Right, because,
just making sure.
yeah, I'm just gonna take it off the plan. I think for presentation purposes, I'm gonna do a strike through, so people can see what's different from the approved plan to what we're moving forward with. And then I had blue highlights that highlighted the other changes and dates. What we try to do is leave most of the action items on there, but extended the time frame of when it would happen. Does that make sense? So are we good to move that till November then? For full board approval with what we talked about and the revised dates? Okay. I know, I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Continuous improvement update. So, as you know, we're gonna talk every month. What's gonna happen is, October is gonna be district update. Then November, the schools are gonna give, a school improvement update. We're just gonna switch every other month for student achievement, so, you know, our meetings don't go forever and have to start at 4:45 always. Plus, you know, improvement efforts, sometimes doing every 3 weeks, we don't have much that changed. So we think if we do it every other month, we'll actually have stuff to share, which is what we want to do. So this month, I'm just going to kind of give an update on where we are with the district plan. And I'll just remind student achievement committee members that the green means it's in progress. Complete green, in progress yellow, or behind schedule red. I think I might have actually messed that up in my things, and I did a lot green. That should probably be yellow.
You're good.
No, I'm good.
You're good.
So the biggest thing I'll just highlight for objective 1, every effective teaching in every classroom. We do have a revised professional learning form and process. So that's when a teacher wants a professional learning opportunity that currently is not something we sponsor in the district. They're interested in doing something else. So they fill out the Google form. It gets submitted to me. I see if we have the funding available in our professional learning budgets, and then work with April so she knows that it's approved, and then our staff can register and attend. Quite a few staff members already have been and continue to take advantage of that. Our physical education teachers are going to their conference at the end of October through this process, which is exciting for them. Janice Radin is going to be going to the Musical Association annual conference. Both Mary and I went to the annual Talented in Music conference. So that's the process that we do. So that's all ready to go when the process is complete. The other things in here that we're working on, really, that's kind of fun is, as you know, we have a bunch of instructional specialists that are new here into the district, 2 brand new ones here at the intermediate, and then Martika coming back out of the classroom to resume math instructional specialist responsibilities at the primary, and Abby. And they're heavy getting some coaching training called cognitive coaching. So really these next bulleted items it's pretty intensive. They go through 8 classes, full days, 2 in the months of September, October, November, December. And we are aligning that learning to their own educator effectiveness. How are they applying their cognitive coaching skills and strategies to how they're working with staff. And then the other item is Mary Iwansky, who had coaching training with the New Teacher Project, which is really scheduled. How do you coach teachers that are new to the profession? Which is a little bit different because we do have a legal requirement to provide mentoring to new to the profession teachers very specifically. So Mary has training in that, and she helps me run that program. You might remember we had 3 days with our new teachers in the beginning of the school year. That's how our new teacher induction starts. And then Mary works with them, a couple times a month on how things are going in their classrooms. And we also meet with our new teachers a couple times throughout the course of the school year after school. So for example, a couple weeks before conferences, we met with our new teachers, and we kind of went like, this is how conferences go in Merton. The intermediate is arena style. This is what it means. You can schedule at the primary. This is how it looks like. Parent schedule time and skyward. So we try to schedule those after school meetings to be timely and relevant to something that they might need to know that's very Merton specific. So some of these action items hopefully will continue to be in process or close to completion when I talk again in that. iReady training, this should be iReady training is complete as far as learning the software, how to administer. We're going to keep working with them on how to analyze data. That's going to be probably a multi-year kind of thing, but the actual how do we get all kids to take our iReady and what does that mean training is complete. When we're looking at safe, supportive, and collaborative, so you see the one red, and depending on based off of having a conversation with Andrew. What we do, the red is that sheet of collecting post-test data and post-task data for second step. So we're waiting to have a conversation with the board around that, so we'll circle back to that on our district dashboard. But otherwise, Leadership Academy happened. We have the survey out and we'll be analyzing that. Some of the big themes from Summer Academy that we just, some is around communication. As you know, every staff member gets 1 day to work in their classroom before we even bring back Summer Academy, but we don't list that on our agenda, so I think sometimes people forget they have a day to use whenever they feel like it to come in. So we want to make sure we remind them, because sometimes they're hearing like more classroom work time, but we allocated a full day to have that. But of course, we also know, you know, there's never enough classroom work time. There's a lot of preparation for that. Some more themes that kind of came off. Staff liked that we tried not to use, if it was on the schedule, the full 3.5 hours of sit and get. That they might have had shorter bursts and then some time to kind of process their new learning. So that was well received. You know, and we're also trying to find a more comfortable space. It's hard to sit for a long amount of time, especially when we have the full district together. The really only location that we have for that with writing tables has been the Merton primary cafeteria, and the benches are like not the best. And we can position like things better for the screen, but we get a lot of feedback on our back to school and services on just that. And we don't get that same feedback when we're working at school levels, because here Steve has a learning lounge in the work area, but really the only space at the primary for Becca continues to be that cafeteria. So, you know, we get some feedback that is helpful for us and that we can probably think, and we're still a little bit stumped of what we can do to maybe make that full district experience more physically comfortable for teachers. So we work on those kind of things. That's the purpose of why we collect data. And then of course, our objective 3, guaranteeing viable curriculum. We're rolling on all of these things. For the most time, they're multi-year goals. We've been sending our staff to a whole bunch of training on the intervention and support side. Again, sending Mary, who's new to gifted and talented, to some professional learning opportunities for her to help support some of our high-end students. And of course, like a whole bunch of training all over the place. We've been really busy. I'm spending our ESSER funds very well. Academic, when Ron isn't using it for uni events. Get that back. Get it back.
You have that.
I like to joke about that. So that part is really going well. And one thing that is going to be sneaking us up between now and our next meeting that's a little bit new, I'll just remind the board on our assessment schedule, but we are giving the pre-ACT 8-9 to all of our students in 8th grade. And then I'm gonna have a night for parents to help on course sequencing for over at Arrowhead. Feel really powerful about that. I may sadly have to wait. Arrowhead is potentially looking at block scheduling, and that may change how I go about this event. So that's kind of, I'm a little bit in limbo. I'm so excited about doing that, but if they move to block, how I might do that day will look different. So I'm just gonna continue my partnership with Sue Casetta at following out what the block schedule would look like, how that would be implemented, and then I'll try my best to design a night. Also, I'm gonna reach out to a couple Merton families that had 8th graders here last year that went to 9th grade. Like, what are some things you wish you would have known to help me plan that day? Like, I know as a mom of Arrowhead, or Ron, like if you have kids, you know kind of how it works. But if I didn't do what I did for a living, you know, by the time the freshman conference happens at Arrowhead in most cases, kids have already course sequenced 2 of their 4 years. And I think with my K-12 experience, I really can help our families really understand the decisions that they're doing already freshman year and the impact that it can have for them on what opportunities would be available by senior year for them. So I'm excited about that, but the testing will be happening in November. So that's a new piece in case you hear from parents, why, but I think it's really, again, supposed to help support them knowing, what you get at the Arrowhead transition, to me, just isn't enough. In K-12 systems, often the counselors the high school counselors pick up kids in 8th grade to help in course planning. We don't have that option, so I think we can do a little better here. So I'm excited about that because I can get my nerd on. Hopefully help some families here in Merton. And then, as you know, we have some things on here, the ACP Arrowhead Transition Nights on here. We've been having our parent nights, as we would say, and we're going to keep going and post our school improvement and innovation goals on as we finalize. And we've been working on our rollout plans in the individual schools. By Steve and Becca will be sharing how they're collecting information based off of their goals from both their leadership teams and their staff throughout the first couple months here. So we're progressing nicely on our goal work. Andrew, there's one thing I just need a decision from you on, but we can talk about that later. So the other things, but that's all I have. So is there any questions on the district goal work?
Let's circle back just on the SAL, or after listening to it, I agree with what you said, we should keep it on for kids that are in SAL. We should talk about it, let's just see how it goes.
Oh, the district data dashboard?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know K-5, that we might not have their first student, depending on where they are, but we'll get the remaining ones. And 6A would be fine if they just started. So I'll work with Dawn. All right, anything else? And I'm gonna turn it over to the chairperson.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I asked for a motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
To order. During the community forum, we allow the members of the community and the audience to interact with the board on issues. I always like to tell you that once we get into board meeting, I don't allow the interaction. So use this opportunity. There's a part of the beginning of the board meeting where there's delegations to be heard, and we let individuals speak to us, but that's not a time for interaction. Board meeting is our board meeting. This is the time for the community to bring up issues and to talk to us about it. So, does anybody want to talk to us tonight?
Are you asking, are they calling on the list?
What'd you say? The list is for the delegations to be heard.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's in the board meeting.
Right.
So now it's open. You speak to it. Go ahead.
Hi, Rebecca Hines. And you're going to talk about this later on. I can't stay. I have rehearsal, so I'm hoping there's some points you'll address when you discuss the proposal for the personnel committee to have, everybody has the $1,000 available to them to consult outside counsel. So while I can't be here, I'm hoping some points to hear some clarification on is what we would need this for, what is not already covered by the council that we have through the school district, and why this would be a higher priority than spending that $5,000 on other things. I can't think of a lot of things that we need that reasons to do that, except for perhaps maybe somebody's helping write policy, although I think everyone's capable of doing that. And will there be any constraints on who you can hire, right? Can I give the $1,000 to my sister, the lawyer? So those are some things I'm hoping that you'll discuss when you get to that point. I recognize you're going to discuss that later. Thank you.
Feedback from the board on that? But
As far as, it has to be a school district attorney. Right now, there's two. That's all. So yeah, you could go to your sister or retain her. Board members cannot go out and retain.
So it's not current that you can speak to the district's attorney if you need to?
not been a practice that unless you go through proper channels, you either go through the district administrator or the board president, go forward. That's a practice we've had in the past.
Do you have any concern that individually contacting the council will make it difficult for you as a board to make decisions?
I think it's gonna make it difficult for us to be a functional board. I have strong reservations against going forward with that. There's many things on this agenda that I have reservations about that hinder us from being a functional board. So I will be voicing my opinion on very few things. I don't like the direction of the move.
Hi, one. Dan Benishek. I saw in the new business today that there's a discussion around the approval, or the potential required approval of school administrator contracts, instead of having them passively roll over as teachers do, like they do today, that there might potentially be a policy coming down the path where they require active approval. The note specifically said that there have been no issues in the past. So as a executive who deals with operations and leading methodologies, I'm always very curious as to why we add policy and procedure when no issues exist. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation around that during the meeting.
I'm also looking forward to that conversation. We have state statute in place for all of that. I'm not keen on layers and layers of policy. I don't like overburdening the function of a board with extra policies. I don't like the idea of micromanaging issues either.
Can I just ask a simple follow-up question to that? With your policy for the board, a lot of these information for setting, what's the board policy on like a smaller committee that brings things to the board? Is there like a certain number that there has to be? My question is to that is there's 5 people on our board, and if a committee is made up of 3 people and they're bringing something to the board, hasn't that already won majority vote? So that's kind of my question.
That is an assumption that you would make, but
I just didn't know, like, clarification on committee, like, subcommittee policies. Is there something? I couldn't find anything.
I think when the committee agenda is put, I believe you put at the bottom, that no formal action, although a quorum is, I'm a paraphrase, although a quorum is together, no action is taken. So, in theory, I think
Yeah.
no action is taken, but if
you're in
the full
agreement,
3 members of the board are bringing forth something out of said committee, whether it's student achievement or policy,
Right.
where 3 members sit on. It could be 2 to 1, it could be 1-1-1, and that's something as we look forward to redoing and updating some of our district policies, and particularly in the 1,000 section, we can certainly address that. Every April when we reorganize, that conversation comes up, and
The board has elected to have 3 people. At one point, we had 4 members in a student achievement committee as well too. So, but it's something that we could take up through a policy lens as well. But again, like Dean said, and Andrew said, there is no formal action ever happening at a committee level.
Okay.
Yeah, because the committee may bring something forward and it could be 2 to 1
Sure.
as well too. So,
Yeah, just outsider, I mean.
as an outsider, I can certainly see that. Yep, certainly.
Anything else? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our formal board meeting, so I'm gonna call the October 24th board meeting to order, and we're gonna start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this meeting has been properly posted, in all the normal posting areas. So, next item on the approval of the agenda, I would love to see some people pull some of those agenda items off of that agenda. Not doing things that make us look dysfunctional. So, but looking for a motion there to go forward.
Make a motion to approve the agenda by striking D and E out of the new business and F.
Do we have a second? Well, I'll second it, I can't make that for the president. So we have a motion and a second, is there any discussion?
I think there are some items in there that, as Steve alluded to earlier, I think are outside scope of what this board should be focused on from a big picture, from a strategic planning, from an oversight perspective. I think that some of this stuff gets into day-to-day management of the school, which is at odds with our charge of school board.
Any other discussion?
I was really not clear, what one did you say you're striking?
D as in dog, E and F.
Okay. Not hearing any other discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
You're abstaining?
I said aye.
Okay, so it's tails on 3-2 votes.
I move to approve the agenda the way it is.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to say, I think we could talk about these. Bad things to talk about.
Okay. All in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Okay, motion's carried. We're going ahead with the agenda as presented. We've got the minutes here.
Motion to approve the minutes dated Monday, September 26th,
2022 at 6 p.m. open session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for Monday, September 26, 2022, 7:30 p.m. open closed session.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additions, corrections to those? And all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Okay, we're on to the financial report and bill list.
Okay, motion to approve the voucher listing dated September 17, 2022 through October 18, 2022. Payroll, check number 553830 through 553831, the amount of $340.30. Check number 553832 in the amount of $162.54. Direct deposit number 900057842 through 900057960, the amount of $177,865.10. Direct deposit number 900057961 through 900058073, the amount of $163,136.36. And wire transfer number 2022000078 through 2022000107, the amount of $319,332.86. Total payroll of $660,837.16. Accounts payable, check number 55493 through 55554, in the amount of $231,519.72. AP wire transfer 2022000087 through 2022000089, the amount of $419.09. Wire transfer 2022000094 through 2022000096, $5,902.19. Wire transfer 2022000109 through 2022000110, in the amount of $381.59. Credit card transaction 92022 in the amount of $18,622.62. ACH direct deposit number 222300032 through 222300046, the amount of $1,146.94. Total accounts payable of $257,992.15. Total disbursements of $918,829.31.
We have a motion to accept the financial report and bill listing as presented. Are there any questions, concerns? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We're on to delegations to be heard. And we've got Mary who'd like to speak to us.
Hi everybody, it's been a couple months since I've been here to talk to the board, and I've never been here when so many other people show up. So thanks for being here. It's fun to talk in front of other people. A very wise former staff member would always remind me that every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. On the most simplistic level, I keep this in mind each day when I run the makerspace at the primary school. When a kid asks to use 100 pom-poms for their project, I have to consider saying yes to that child means that some other child might not have any pom-poms left to use on his or her project. When I say yes to using glitter for a project, I'm saying no to having clean surfaces and makerspace for the remainder of the school year. Last month, an invoice needing special approval was brought forward to the board. Invoice 1947, payable to Atolis Law, accounted for $3,245.50 in unapproved legal fees primarily accrued by Troy Andersen through his work with a law firm other than the one typically used by the district, and partially accrued by Dr. Ron Russ through conversations that he spoke of and owned up to during the meeting. Through an open records request of the specific bill, I learned this bill was accrued through 11.2 hours of conversations with lawyers, including conversations on SEL policies, administrative contract non-renewal language and the timeline for doing that, and staff requirements for parent contact regarding student gender identity or orientation. Ultimately, it was approved through a 3-2 vote that the school was responsible for finding $3,245.50 to pay this bill. My question to the board goes back to how I opened my time tonight. When you said yes to that bill, what were you okay saying no to? Looking through the teacher handbook, it struck me the various things that money that your legal bill accrued could have been taken from. Would you have said yes to that bill if it meant saying no to 3 basketball teams this upcoming season? Our basketball coaches make $1,000 each. Would you say yes to that legal bill if it meant saying no to 75 students taking part in National Honor Society this year? Their advisor gets paid $2,500 to run that entire organization for the year. Would you have said yes to that bill if it meant cutting the musical this year, which would mean 100 kids would miss out on their theater debuts? What about saying no to the 100 students in Student Senate? Are they okay to say no to? I think we can agree that we don't want our students to miss any of those opportunities, so our business manager, April, is forced to look elsewhere in the budget. Next up, we could consider cutting $3,000 from Jim Binney's technology budget, which might mean 10 classrooms don't get their hover cams replaced next year, and students are unable to clearly see the things that their teachers are projecting. Is that an acceptable no? What about from buildings and grounds? We could get almost all the kids in a grade level new tables for next year. We'll just leave a couple spots at old desks, or one room without new flooring. Is that an acceptable no? Again, for the sake of our students, I would say those aren't acceptable options either. So April is forced to look elsewhere. Later tonight, you're going to have a discussion around giving each board member $1,000 a year to spend on legal fees that they accrue that the district or board doesn't have to have pre-approved knowledge of. I question what topics the board policy committee anticipates coming up that will lead them to needing the secret legal counsel instead of running legal counsel through the board president or district administrator as has been past practice. I also question what guidance you've given April and what student opportunity supplies or services you're willing to say no to in the budget this year to account for $5,000 worth of unanticipated spending that you're proposing this evening. A few weeks ago, I put in a requisition for $50 worth of instructional materials. Prior to it being approved, Ron followed up with me with several questions to clarify how this would be used, who it would be benefiting, and how the accounting of it should be reported. I asked for $50, but I happily answered the questions because I knew that it was to make sure that the yes he was saying to me was worth the no's he would eventually have to say to somebody else. Tonight you're asking for a policy that asks for 100 times more than I asked for. And you're asking that it can be used at your discretion without anyone knowing who it's benefiting, how it's being used, and what the intended outcome is. It seems financially irresponsible that this money would be blindly spent when teachers and administration have worked so hard to this point to make sure that we are a financially responsible and viable district. I ask you tonight to consider the students in each decision you make. I fear that in your pursuit of your own individual agendas, you've sometimes forgotten that your ongoing yeses to things mean the district has to scurry and say multiple no's to other things that educational professionals have determined to be meaningful, important, and beneficial. I ask that you put some trust back in the administration and our staff to know that we can say yes to, and what no's will end up needing to be. I ask that you stop asking for things that pull our staff and administration away from the real work of schools that we're trying to do. Thank you for your time.
Abby?
I'm speaking tonight as a parent, but also a staff member. Because the concerns that I have are not just for my children, they are for each and every child in this district. The most important thing in this district, and in any school district, is the students. Every single decision that is made, policy that is put in place, discussion or thought should be based around what is best for our students. This is something that I am seeing less and less evidence of in board policies, agenda items, and even PTO decisions. It is concerning to me that people's personal beliefs and agendas are driving decisions that affect each and every child in this district. One example of this is the agenda item listed today about possibly moving fourth grade to intermediate school. After After reading the proposal, I saw no evidence that our students' needs or best interests were discussed or considered. The proposal only addresses the financial implications of moving this grade level. It has been stated that fourth grade was at one time located in the intermediate building, and that should be a reason why we should be comfortable with it. However, just because something was done before does not mean that it is what currently is best for our students. I am asking the board to address the following questions about this topic at the next board meeting. What research was read and considered during the discussion of bringing this to the board? What were the other options that were considered and ruled out, and why were they ruled out? When will the families be provided with more information about how this will look for fourth grade students? For example, what were their special spots look like? I'm assuming that it will look like it does at the primary now, since fourth grade is the primary grade, but I'm concerned about that with the intermediate schedule. Other than posting the board agenda so that families are aware of this, what other ways will the community input be collected before this decision is made? Another concern I would like to address is the misinformation that has been presented during board meetings. The community should be able to trust and rely on the board members to present accurate information and make decisions based on that information and how it impacts student learning. The misinformation is creating a distrust for teachers and staff from the families in this community. What is being said by some board members implies that we cannot trust our teachers to educate our students and make decisions without including their own personal agendas. For as long as I have been at Merton, I have not seen evidence that this is true. An example of this issue is that some board members have with providing students with social emotional learning. Misinformation that has been presented during board meetings leads to a misunderstanding of what students are engaging in during this time in the classroom. This is a time for students to build community and relationships with their classmates. It provides students with strategies to help them process their strong emotions. When political organizations are used to determine if the resources should be used in the classroom, that decision itself is now based on a political agenda. I am asking that board members, PTO members, administration, staff, and families, as well as the community, start to hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable to keeping students and their best interests at the center of what we do.
Rebecca?
That's me. I asked a question.
Good. Yeah. He's good. Okay, and then there's Daniel.
I'm not a political person, nor have I gotten involved in previous schools with my school board outside of PTO. In looking at what's going on in our communities and locally, my wife and I felt the need to write a letter, and we wrote a letter to the Arrowhead Board of Education, and I'd like to read that real quick. This is to the Arrowhead Board of Education, new pronoun policies and parent authorization. As parents of 2 children in the Merton Arrowhead School District, this letter hereby authorizes and requires any Board of Education member, administrator, teacher, staff member to refer to our children as any pronoun they request, such as our children may see fit. My child is also empowered to change their pronoun whenever they choose from here into perpetuity. If another child or adult asks to be referred by a particular pronoun, my child will respect that request and do so without prior authorization from any third party, elected, appointed, or otherwise placed in some level of authority. In broader regard to policies you have enacted as a Board of Education at Arrowhead, you have deliberately chosen a path which marginalizes at-risk children and removes school and teachers as potentially the one safe place they may have had from abuse, bullying, and discrimination. It has been proven that students who identify as gender minority have attempted suicide rate nearly 4 times higher than other students. And 23% of high school students identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual reported attempted suicide in the prior 12 months. You are okay as a board making that situation worse for kids in our schools who live in our neighborhoods, go to church with us, and participate in our celebrations. You have caused the exodus of wonderful educators who have dedicated their lives to the betterment of the children and our community. You've done this by deciding it's okay for teachers to feel unsafe and uncertain in how they respond to kids who might feel different, that their jobs might be at risk if they offer support to a child who asks for help or just wants to talk, or by wearing a shirt that says they believe in basic human rights and dignity because somehow in that abhorrent reality, that's become a political statement Instead of a standard, we hold ourselves another to. We've chosen all of these outcomes because of either politics, base cruelty, or ignorance. And any of these reasons are shameful and unacceptable.
Signed up to speak. Is anybody else that didn't sign in like to speak to delegations bureau? Okay, then we're moving on. We are to Clerk Administrator's report, and we've got the acceptance of donations.
Would like to present a big thank you to our PTO for donating just under $20,000, $19,970.30 for our second or part of the new signage that is out front. So a big thank you, and then again, another great partnership with our PTO and our families. So thank you very much for everyone who has contributed to that. The other donation from PTO was $425.40 for back to school meals. So thank you very much on behalf of the staff. Thank you very much. And then finally, Andrea Reed and Girl Scout Troop 6380 for their generous donation of $116.25. They've come to the board a couple times. They're the ones who outfitted and redid the first grade, right behind the first grade, right outside door M, I do believe. Not M. One of the doors behind there on the way to recess. Again, they redid everything. So big thank you to Andrea Reed and the Girl Scout Troop there too as well. So just looking for a motion to accept the donations as presented.
So moved.
Give it a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We're on to personnel actions.
Sure, we have 3 personnel actions. We would like to present Olivia Griepentrog's letter of resignation, effective as of Wednesday. We have collected and arranged the liquidated damages, so all is straight up there too as well. So thank you, Olivia, for 3 years of service to our kids. To replace Olivia, or Mrs. Griepentrog, we would like to present Catherine Dawes. Captain Dawes as our replacement. Again, thank you very much. Our community, as soon as they heard there was an art opening, I think there were a few phone calls that were made to Catherine. So again, thank you to Ms. Stein for organizing the interview process and everything. But again, we're very excited to present her individual proposed contract. She has 16 years of art education, most of which and most recently was at Richmond School too. So. And then finally, we're bringing Patricia Malou over as a special education instructional assistant to replace Kelly Naylor, who left us in September. So again, just looking for 3 motions: 1 to accept the resignation from Olivia Griepentrog as presented, 1 for Catherine Dawes as presented for an individual teacher contract, and then finally looking for approval for the letter of appointment for Patricia Malou as presented.
Motion to accept the letter of resignation from Olivia.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just say my boys are going to accept. She was a great teacher. They were very sad, but she was a great teacher.
Okay, all in favor then of accepting the resignation, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
Motion to approve the individual teacher contract for Catherine Dawes as presented.
We get a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We have the IA.
One more motion for Patricia Malou. Motion to approve the letter of appointment for Patricia Malou as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? And all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are on to staff recognition.
So this month, we would like to honor Mrs. Lori Lewandowski, or most of us know her as Mrs. Lou. Lori, stand up. Stand up. So Lori has spent 30 years of education. In her entire career has been here in the Merton Community School District. She's somebody who has been in both buildings a couple times, and from a fourth grade standpoint has just been that rock and that staple, somebody you can always go to and can always depend on. Somebody who continues to roll with the flow. There's been a lot of instructional approaches that has come through her time, always from instructional specialists, and always willing to learn and go above and beyond for our children and our staff as well. So I just would like to read a couple things that some people wrote about Mrs. Lou. Lori Lou is a true gift to this district. I have been blessed to work alongside her for 4 years, and they have been nothing but short of magical. Lori is the epitome of what it means to be a teacher. She is compassionate, dedicated, and has an unconditional love for all of her kids. She is always willing to share ideas with her colleagues and prioritizes that family feeling at school. I have learned so much from her wealth of knowledge and experience, as have many of her peers. Students in this district who end up with Mrs. Lou as their teacher have truly hit the jackpot. A parent wrote, Lori has been the continued strength at Merton Primary School. Many of my children have had her for 4th grade, and my kids still talk about her classroom as an experience that was so positive and loving from a parent. So, Mrs. Lou, thank you very, very much on behalf of our entire Board of Education and our entire Mom and Dad, thank you very much for coming. We oversee today.
Here we go.
Okay, we're going to move to the committee reports, and the first one is the Finance Committee.
I'm gonna have April give the recap for that meeting, please.
Finance committee was held last week, Wednesday. So as you can see on the agenda, we discussed first quarter financials, final budget numbers, the ESSER report, and a review of ESSER 3. So revenue and expense reports are attached in the packet for the first quarter of the fiscal year. We discussed in detail through line items, but overall, we're kind of right where I would expect to see us for the end of the first quarter. With the final budget, we received all of our final budget information in October, so we got the equalized property value, the third party count, and our city final numbers. So our membership has increased by 57 students, so that's 57 more students that are in the district this year compared to last year. We also saw an increase in open enrollment in, and we did see a slight decrease in students opting to open enroll out. Property value increased 16.5% over the prior year, so that is a very high percentage. A few other districts saw increases, but not, well, most saw increases, but not quite to that extent. And our state aid also increased almost 9% over the prior year. So all of these factors combine to provide our tax levy mill rate to drop from $3.86 per thousand from last year to $3.16 per thousand this year. Next, we discussed the ESSA school level report. The goal of this report is to see how money is distributed among buildings in the district. Merton only has 2 buildings, and we have different grade levels in each building. So for us, it's not a very good comparison report like it is for other districts. But the main goal of this report is for DPI to be able to publish financial data with the state report card. So I think that's the future of what we're working towards. And then for ESSER 3, at the annual meeting, I had mentioned possibly using part of our ESSER 3 dollars to help implement our new early childhood program this year. So my original estimate was $40,000 of ESSER 3, and the final amount used is going to be $32,840 to help with
There's approximately $73,000 remaining after the known expenses that have already been accounted for this year and for next year. So we'll revisit that with the next budget year.
Questions? Okay. We are on to B, Student Achievement Committee.
Sure. B and C, there you go. So, again, thank you to Maria, who, right before the meeting did create we had our Student Achievement Committee. Again, we did release the forward data was out, and again, you can see that in the board packet. Again, we do continue to try to, move that uptick of student achievement, and as a district goal last year, we were looking for approximately a 20% growth or 20% decrease of our students who were not proficient on the forward exam, and we did achieve that goal at right around 22% globally across the district, so we were really excited about that. Again, you can see in that document how we did compared to the other local Arrowhead feeder schools, as well as some other local K-12s who we often sometimes get compared against, and/or some of our neighboring school districts there too. So big kudos to our staff and to our students and our family for making that happen too as well. A lot of hard work went into that too from that standpoint. So the next thing was we talked about ACP. We did have to, we brought back some ACP modifications based on a couple things. One of them was our inability to find another counselor to replace Tech Krajewski who left. The other piece we did talk about too is some of the items in our ACP plan do contain SEL core competencies in those. And so we had some conversation pieces around how we want to move forward, given the motion that occurred about having parents opt out of SEL competencies too as well. So we were given some direction. Again, we are working with PTO and the Gals Institute to create an 8-9 transition program for our students here at Merton Intermediate. Again, it would be housed here, not at Arrowhead, but again, it's designed to wherever those students would go into their 9th grade. Again, just kind of beginning that transition piece there too as well. So that will be, again, following the board motion and looking forward and out for our families too as well. Again, more communication will be coming out to our 8th grade families about that too as well. And then we talked about some continued conversations will be moving forward as we look at our ACP planning as it relates to some of our Explore classes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, as we move away from geometry, statistics, probability, about kind of backfilling some of that work with some possible study skills, organizational ideas, again, that are also core SEL competencies too as well. So more discussion will be being brought forward next month as well. And the state does require that we adopt an ACP plan. Maria will be bringing a formal plan to the board for approval come November from that standpoint too. From a continuous improvement update, again, it kind of went back and forth with the forward scores, so it's very consistent there. And we also talked about some of the other items that would be around a safe, collaborative, and supportive culture, some family engagement, and again, all of our goal work for this upcoming year is highlighted in the board packet in about a 10-page document too, so you guys can take a peek at that as well. And then finally, we talked about updating our district dashboard, and the conversation was around about keeping what do we want to do with the SEL part of it, about gathering that information and reporting that out on our district dashboard. Our district dashboard basically is a kind of a collection of our current reality and some goal work about where we want to be on some data indicators, whether it be forward indications, some of our iReady stuff for universal screening or whatever it might be too. And the decision was to keep it on the data dashboard moving forward so we can kind of track some progress across the district on that standpoint too as well. Maria, did I miss anything? We're good there? All right. And then for the Policy and Personnel Committee, again, they did meet twice between each meeting. We did give an update on the number of surveys completed. Again, that survey window did close. And we had about 62% of our staff participate, so thank you very much for that. We do expect the data to come back in October, late October, right around the Halloween time next week. Again, we will push that out, and again, the Policy and Personnel Committee, I'm sure, will be taking up and having some conversations about that. That will be something that, again, we've talked about pushing that out to our staff as well, so they can kind of see some of the metrics that have been collected and things like that too as well. We talked about kind of the educational technology policy. Again, the question came up about just, the amount of videos that our principals were receiving and things like that. And again, from a primary standpoint, again, very short video clips that are 4K and 5K and some special ed. Again, it's just some numbers that were requested of the policy team to be able to kind of talk a little bit more about that. So we talked more about some of the nuances of that policy and how we are implementing that too as well. And then C, the creation of the board policy to discuss with legal counsel. Again, the committee asked administration to create a policy allowing $1,000 per member per fiscal year for discretionary legal fees that would be used only towards district legal counsel. Again, kind of like Troy highlighted in the community forum. And that was the direction that they wanted me to start a write a policy around that. And again, I'll be presenting that to the committee if that's the will of the committee yet, to move forward with that too as well. Again, we just had some clarifications on employee code of conduct and staff ethics that we talked about there. From a district administration and administrative performance evaluation, again, that goes with one of the new business items as it relates to whether contracts are rolled actively or passively. Again, we currently do that in a passive way, which means if no action is taken, they automatically roll or are extended per the contractual language as well. And then the discussion for the timeline, again, I will be presenting a time frame, but ultimately, as we backward design our policy work, we'd be looking for the finalization of all the 3000s, which is our curriculum and instruction, to be approved at the June board meeting. So we'll just work backwards. The thousands and the 2000s policy series there's not a ton there. The 3000s is where it gets really, really heavy. And that'll take a little bit more time. So we'll just make sure that we set our time frames, that we will be moving forward and making sure that we achieve that too as well. And then finally, we talked about our MVP process. And again, we kind of clarified about any staff member or parent can nominate another staff member for an MVP. All that information is on the website, on our main website. And it's just one of our aspects that we take a look at when we bring folks like Lori Lou here or Dan Hanrahan as a staff recognition in front of the board publicly. And again, it's just one piece that we look at as we move forward too. So again, that is open for all staff members to participate in, and then parents feel free to nominate another staff member too.
The letter D, that would be around policy 50. I'm sorry, I'm getting my eyes checked out.
Policy
5015 and 5016 different scenarios. Something occurring that kind of triggered that. Because I thought, and I know we did a lot of policy work with May, June, July. I thought we tweaked these. So was a discussion around tweaking those, or I guess I was confused because I thought we tweaked these too earlier. I was trying to find it in a prior agenda.
We did a first reading and a second reading like we normally would do. There just was some conversation around would this scenario be part of an issue or a conflict with our staff ethics policy or code of conduct policy. We had some conversations around, what I would say probably freedom of speech conversations to focus around, what happens if someone says something that is either in favor of the district or not in favor of the district, or a direction that we're going or not a direction that we're going, can be considered as concerted activity and or just freedom of speech of being a staff member.
And then, generally speaking, that's what we approved July. The WASB
kind of systematically, so this is kind of year one of that year, that 3-year plan. You got it. You got it. Okay. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, we're on to new business. A, approval of the 2022-23 district budget tax levy.
So as April and the Finance Committee have reviewed, it's that time that the state's required for us to set our tax levy, which ultimately allows us to gather tax revenue from the 4 local municipalities, and we set our budget. So again, the administration is looking, and the finance team is recommending that the administration, or that the motion be made. Basically, we have to read the motion verbatim as required by state statute. So again, this is levying to the max and utilizing our full tax authority, including the paragraph. Yep.
I make a motion to recommend to certify the tax levies of Fund 10 in the amount of $4,045,330.00. Fund 38 in the amount of $59,482.00. Fund 41 in the amount of $100,000.00, for a total tax levy of $4,204,812.00. Be it resolved that the property tax levy to fund the 2022-2023 Merton Community School District operations be set at $4,204,812.00, and that the necessary certifications be forwarded to the clerks of the appropriate municipalities.
Got a second? Okay. The motion is second. Is there any questions, discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the tax levy as presented? Aye. Aye. All the same sign? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. Information and discussion around possibly moving the 4th grade to Merton Intermediate.
Okay. Mind if I stand up, Dean?
Yeah, that's
All right. Okay. So, well, can I ask for audience participation? How many people are interested in this topic? That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So, thanks everybody for coming out. And a couple of things I first wanted to kind of highlight is whether it be from the public conversation. This was an idea. This is as the superintendent of schools, I'm bringing this idea. I'm bringing this to present to our school board, and I will tell you this is not an administrative recommendation. This is a Ron Russ, superintendent of the Merton Community School District, asking the school board to consider an opportunity and options that I feel give the district some leverage for future possibilities, whether it be in the area of student opportunity and or the fiscal future of the district too as well, and utilizing some open enrollment opportunities we have there too. So the 4-page document that was created in the board packet is truly an introduction in the beginning. I did talk to April, and I said, April, should I create a 10-page white paper about this? And we just said, well, we're just going to keep with the basics for right now, certainly. Again, kind of how I started the background to this is as we continue to see growth across the district, we continue to see in particular, the north end of our school continue to expand. And we also have seen Merton Primary School really start to meet its max capacity within the given walls so that we can continue that instructional program across all the different areas, whether that be in music, art, makerspace, physical education, and or other classroom spaces. As we think about, our opportunities, and I had a conversation with a parent today that said that was a little bit concerned about our 2nd grade class size. I said, you're right, we were concerned about that. I said, we left one classroom open for expanded growth, and we decided, and again, I still think it was the right decision, to expand into that 6th 5K section. We have no more room at Merton Primary unless we want to get creative from a physical space standpoint. Like what's highlighted in the packet, you will see that we obviously have a 1st grade large group area. that we can build a classroom in, just very similar to what we did with art. That would mean we'd have to relocate some of our indoor recess and our indoor play areas. We can start to think about moving our specialists. You know, when we talk about music on the move, where the specialist would go to each individual classroom teacher's classroom and deliver music education, art education, or makerspace. So right now, our physical space at Merton Primary School, I would say, is almost 100% utilized. What isn't utilized? Some of our, what I'd say are like our library conference room. And it's an interior room. Sure, we could put some kids in there and put a classroom in there. Is that ideal for everybody? I would say probably not. So the opportunity and the option came up about possibly relocating 4th grade over to Merton Intermediate. Now, another option that was obviously discussed in the paper was that we can raise, we can raise class sizes. If we want to say, hey, this is our footprint, we have to live within that footprint, and away we go, okay? I can't predict how many students are going to continue to come to us through residency, but we do gather students through our open enrollment process too as well. One of the things that we've seen over the last several years is our students who start in open enrollment often end up as residents, okay? What that means is they purchase a home or they purchase a lot, and they are in the process of building, or they're going to be building, and they want their students to start as soon as possible in the Merton Community School District, where they eventually will end up. So that is part of our open enrollment process, but we have accepted them in from that standpoint. So again, we see a lot of our open enrollment students turn from open enrollment to residence. And it's just a shift in our attendance procedures from that standpoint. So the opportunity to possibly free up some student space to assist with the expansion of Merton Primary School, but also the opportunity to start to kind of look at some of the unique spaces, whether it be for special education or whether it be just for future expansion. If we were to move 4th grade from Merton Primary to Merton Intermediate, it would free up approximately 4 classrooms at this time. Okay, 4. In order for us to accommodate Merton Intermediate, would then have to move the after-school wrap program, which houses kind of the Wisconsin Youth Program, which also houses our 4K wrap program. We would move that over to Merton Primary School, leaving 2 4th grade classrooms would be used for after school, because they need 2 spaces for licensing, and that would leave 2 classrooms for expansion, for special education, or for whatever future building needs were needed at Merton Primary School. Now, and again, my principals and my other administrative team would say, Ron, we really want to keep 4th grade at Merton Primary School. I can't disagree with that. I can't. I don't have research that shows 4th grade will perform better in a 4-8 building. I don't have that. I see this more as an opportunity for student expansion over there. To say that it's unique for us, again, obviously most elementary schools are K through 5 or K through 6, traditionally. In our Arrowhead system, we know that we are the only K through 4, and Merton Intermediate is 5-8. Heartland Lakeside has a K through 2 building, 3-5, and then 6-8. The other 5 feeder schools, Lake Country, the Swallows, Stone Banks, Richmond, they are all K through 8. Where there are 8th graders interacting with 4Kers. Somewhere in their system, they're all underneath one roof. Again, we all have different systems that are put in place to make sure that, our 4th graders right now are isolated. Our 3rd grade is isolated. We would do the very best we can at Merton Intermediate to possibly isolate our 4th graders. Obviously, we have a location that they're not going to be isolated by themselves. When Lori was over here for 4th grade, this wing right behind here was all 4th grade. And then when we had the opportunity, again, because I believe 4th grade, when we had the opportunity to move them back, we moved 4th grade over there. And then 5th grade was all by themselves. Well, then we had a vision, and all of a sudden now we've got these wonderful spaces, and 5th grade is right back up over where they used to be, where 5th and 6th grade is housed, used to be. Because right now our 5th grade is pretty much only down the hallway by the library. So the recommendation or the consideration is for the board to think about, and what I'd like our community to think about is the positives about possibly moving 4th grade over here to free up space over at Merton Primary School to be able to still deliver the same curricular programming that we would be able to do. Again, we would pick up 4th grade all the way from 4th grade tables to 4th grade chairs. Right now, we are planning on being the same elective structure, so we think about what art is going to look like. What is music going to look like? Hour of art, hour of music, hour and a half of FIAD, hour of maker. Are they going to be in this building? They would. One of the reasons why we're thinking about having to do this and really asking for the board to kind of consider this by January is how do we infuse 4th grade into the master schedule? How do we ensure that the art room is going to be open for 4th graders when we can? And again, if we're going to be sharing staff with Merton Primary, we got to make sure we work schedules together to be able to make that happen. We have done this before, and I'm not saying that's the only reason to say that, oh, we've done it before, so we're going to do it again. 4th grade in this building, we had success with it. We did. Again, nobody's losing their job. Nobody is going to be, in the student experience would be, I can't say identical, as close to identical as what's happening over there. Because the art room is going to be in a different room. The music room could be here. So they're going to have different room locations, but they are still going to be delivered. 4th grade music can be out here instead of next door. The other aspect of this is fiscal. I'm not going to lie. And you're going to be like, why are you doing this, Ron? Why is money driving this? I will tell you, the more kids we have, the more money we get. Open enrollment, as in the packet, we receive about $560,000 in additional revenue out of about a $9.4 million budget. Where was that? Up to 10.5. So up to 10.5. So we get $550,000 through our open enrollment program. Net.
Get in like 1.1 million.
And then we pay out. So we have a lot of students who access and a lot of families who have accessed our open enrollment opportunities. If we keep Merton Primary over at our 4th grade at Merton Primary, we will really have to, in my opinion, we'll be recommending to the board a very narrow window, the number of slots for open enrollment students. How many is yet to be determined, but that occurs in January. So the open enrollment program brings in additional revenue and moves class sizes up to an appropriate level that we would deem appropriate to help, kind of balance from the business model. If you have 17 residents, and if we get 3 more open enrollment students in that classroom, that's an additional $27,000. That helps pay for that classroom expenditure. Okay, approximately 27. It keeps moving up. It's right around 88.24 per open enrollment student as well. So we know that there's going to be a lot of things that do we have a plan? We have a plan. We do. We would transition students just like we would from 4th to 5th grade. We would transition them from 3rd to 4th over here if in fact the board would move forward with it. Again, like we talked about a time schedule. January is the open enrollment where every school district needs to declare their open enrollment seats. Okay? So that would be something that the board would really, that's why January is super important. The piece also the board would have to consider is the facility improvements that I've recommended that we make to be able to accommodate this move over. Whether it be lockers or classroom improvements, it's just under $80,000 for those improvements to those classrooms and those lockers. The lockers, obviously a 4th grader would get a locker instead of a cupboard. That's kind of how that would be another transition, something different for them to kind of work with too as well. So that is why the January timeframe. One is so we can get our facility schedule and facility planning, open enrollment seats, and then ultimately beginning to work with Becca and Steve on those building schedules to make sure that they match, that we can move forward in that planning process too as well. So lots of things to think about, certainly. Again, as we think about the specialists, we would take them up and move them over. And one of the questions was, is a specialist licensed to teach a third grader or a fourth grader or a fifth grader? The answer is yes. Our specialists are K through 12 certified. So Janice Rodden, Caitlin Dora, our Phi Ed teachers, our art teachers are all K-12 certified folks as well. We start to think about that too as well. In the proposed layout, again, it would be 4th and 5th grade down that hallway. There wouldn't be a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade classroom like there is now down in that area. All 6th, 7th, and 8th grade would be upstairs. We currently right now have one math classroom that is held downstairs by our 5th grade, and we also have 23 6th graders that come down, and their locker is downstairs too as well. Everything 6, 7, 8 would be upstairs. 4 and 5 would be on that first level. We start to think about that too. So we do have opportunities to expand too as well as that wave comes through up to Merton Intermediate. If we need to expand, we do have 2 classroom opportunities in the library here that we would be able to very easily create what would be 3 walls, enter 2 doors, and you've got yourself some really big classrooms with exterior windows as well. So we've got room to expand here at Merton Intermediate, and the staff here at Merton Intermediate are really spread out. They've got a lot of room for us to accommodate as we start to think about that too as well. So those are kind of some of the highlight points. The other part too is as we take a look at our facility, I did mention parking. Too as well. Ultimately, right now we have 560 students next door and 360 here. By moving approximately 85 to 100 kids over to here, it balances out that need for some transportation. We've all picked up our kids at the end of Merton Primary School, and we're parking on grass. As soon as it snows, we're in trouble. We'll have to figure out, continue to work that out and follow that out too as well. So I guess as we start to think about some of the things, options, and again, obviously one of the questions was, do we want to see how our community feels? That's certainly something that we can certainly engage them in too as well. But ultimately, when I take a look at the big picture of things, I think it's something that we really need to give consideration to, from a responsiveness to student enrollment and or student needs at Merton Primary School, and then ultimately the opportunity to continue the open enrollment process here at Merton Primary School in particular. We do see our influx. The majority of our new open enrollment students start right away because families want to get established in a school, and then they stay. And as we think about how school funding is continuing to work, for a district resident, we get $10,000 per resident. For open enrollment, we get $8,824. So a resident and an open enrollment child are almost the same. So it's almost getting to, the money is going right with the child as we go there. So Merton has always been a destination for families. We want to continue to be that destination for families. And open enrollment, again, brings in an additional $560,000 of revenue that is used to offset and do all sorts of great things for our residents and for our community too as well. So that kind of sums up the recommendation from that standpoint. Again, it's October. We still got 3 more board meetings or lots of time to gather information. And we're not going to find research that would support this. Maybe it's out there. But again, we're doing this for responsiveness to facility needs, and ultimately the ability to continue to open enroll, and then which helps us meet district goals and other district financial obligations moving forward.
If we did not do this, would anybody that's open enrolled lose?
Nope. Our policies state that once you are in, you're in. If you are a sibling to a child who's in, so for instance, if you open enrolled and you have a 4K, and you open enrolled in, our open enrollment policy right now says no matter what space availability there is, that sibling is automatically, that's the way our policy reads now. And that is unique. That is unique. Because we want to be able to support that family and not worry about, if this child is my oldest going to go to Merton and my other one is going to go to their home school. We want them all here.
When someone open enrolls, I don't know what the process is, but do we ask them if they're building within the district? Can we ask them?
Yep, we certainly can. That cannot be a determining factor when we start to talk, because if we would say we're going to allow three seats, and we get 5 or 6 applications, there needs to be a random lottery.
Oh, so we can't give no preference to folks that are going to be
I shouldn't say no.
taxpayers?
I shouldn't say no. I'd have to talk to our legal counsel as it relates to, can we write a policy that states if you have purchased a piece of land in the district, you are automatically accepted, or you go to the top of the line.
For the record, I'm not suggesting,
No.
just a question.
Yeah. I have to check. I guess
because when you look at, I'm going to do the math at some point, but just looking at the numbers on the Excel sheet, I mean, it would seem to me that we probably have more growth as it's residents versus open enrollment on an annual basis.
Correct.
Depending what grade level you're in. Correct. Which would lead to looking around and seeing more houses being built.
We do know the reasons because they do give us. We just say, hey, they're like, hey, here's my open enrollment application. By the way, I'm going to become a resident in October. So we do have that listed, and Melissa and Tanya do keep track of
that. Don't need to answer this question, but I would be curious, maybe in November, with some time to think about it, talk to your team. You touched on class sizes. I think we as parents always hear smaller class sizes are better for child development and learning and acceleration, etc. Is that true? Is there so don't have to answer it, but just if you could speak to it at some point in the future as to like, has there been studies done as like, what's the optimal size? Is it 20? Is it 25? Is it 16? Obviously 16 is difficult to do. Just curious if you could address that in the future.
Yep.
And I would like to address before November is if we could get some kind of survey so we know our staff and our community so that we can get their input on maybe the different options and how they feel on it.
Or I was gonna suggest a community forum. Let them come.
Separately.
From what I'm hearing from people either here tonight or that have sent emails that strong feelings, lots of questions. So they're given the opportunity where we can all have a discussion and.
Sure.
Sooner than later.
If we do a community forum, it would be nice to really understand for those folks is like the rationale, the reasons why, so that we can dig into those with the team a little bit too. So
Maybe a survey.
Abby, I was thinking about your comment earlier, like, just better understanding why parents feel a certain way. Whether it's a positive feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm good with it, the kids will interact, or hey, I just, have issues with, 8th graders interacting with, whatever it might be. I think that would be helpful for getting a very big picture of things.
Yeah, send something out beforehand so we have topics for discussion.
Question they can submit, they can say, hey, I'm coming in, here's some topics that I
Not
have
that it's
questions.
limited to that
No.
by all means, but we have something to work off of.
Yeah, or a Dropbox to be able to share why they,
Sure.
so we can group those, the team can group them and say, okay, we have 15 responses of this, 35 responses of X, Y, and Z.
Right, because I would like if we wanted to go down the survey route, again, I would like another opportunity to kind of make sure that some information is, they get a chance to dialogue back and forth before, because if you ask me where I think 4th grade should be, I'll tell you, it's Merton Primary School. as a parent, as if I was the building principal there. As a superintendent, I say something different, because I've got some information, and yet I've got, a different role than a teacher, a parent, and then the principal, or whatever it might be at the school that we're doing. So,
Can we do a survey though of our teachers, or at least give them a chance to talk?
Administrators.
Yeah, the administrators. I'm assuming the administrators had a lot of conversations.
well, they have, and they're like, I will tell you, beyond, I said, the administration, and Becca was like, whoa. Nope, and I said, that's when I was like, and it's true. I mean, I look at Marie and she's just like, so, and that's why.
Is that gonna be weighted into a decision? I mean, obviously no disrespect to you bringing this here, but like teachers' feedback
Yeah.
and stuff, I mean, will that be incorporated versus they just go through this motion of collecting data?
This will be a school board decision, because
Sorry,
it's
I
gonna
was
be
asking,
reflected.
not to you, to these five, will that be implemented into your decision versus just reading the information?
And I can tell you,
Absolutely.
I had personal conversations with the 4th grade team, the people who are affected. I had personal conversations with the 5th grade team, who are personally affected. And then followed up with the one teacher and be like, hey, this is Scopa, Corey. Okay, so we have engaged them, but we have not gotten to the level of, hey, what is your view? How do you think this would work, or whatever it might be too as well. But just more initial dialogue. And this is something that we have talked to the staff about. I mentioned it in June, May or June, and then brought it up again in August as a topic that we as a community, school community, are going to have to continue to wrestle with about, which is a great problem to have. This past year, we experienced a 9% growth. We were the top, in the most percentage growth of any school in Southeast Wisconsin.
Are we expecting that to repeat?
It's hard to say now that interest rates are so high.
Still have a lot of buildings going on right now.
There's a lot going on right now, but how many of them are sitting empty? And our builder is going to be aggressive with, maybe some, price offset. It's a really good question. That we really don't, I don't have that crystal ball.
What's going to be offered for the 4th graders that are up here? Basically, everything's 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, theater, school senate. So everything's down there for them.
That's a good question. That's something that that would be an opportunity to bring 4th graders into the musical, for instance, or student senate. Those are the two big ones from that standpoint. That one I didn't listen for this question.
Well, they have some leadership opportunities at primary as well, like the panels and. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Also, on lunch, recess, I hear from a 5th grader that they don't like the playground equipment as much up here as they do down there, and you're looking at a lot younger running. 5th graders are kind of, some of them still want to play, some of them, they'll hang out and talk. 4th graders, they just want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot to offer them up here. So,
No, we probably would. It'd be very difficult to, I shouldn't say no, not to say we can't. It's just, that means a group of kids would be really spread out, and it would make supervision a little bit more difficult. I can tell you that our playground equipment, our after-school program uses it a lot, and even the wrap care kids do as well, so it's accessible and appropriate for a 4th grader.
I'm just going by a 5th grader's opinion, so.
Yep.
And would they have lunch by themselves?
Right now, we have every grade level has lunch by themselves. Yeah. We would keep 4th grade lunch by themselves.
Maybe having lunch at 10 o'clock in the morning. Somebody eat lunch at 10 or 10:30.
We're not going to be in Arrowhead. Okay, why not? Yeah. Steve, what time does lunch work out? Start now?
11:42 is the first lunch.
11:42. Becca, what time does your first lunch start now? 10:55. Be right around there. Somewhere. Again, we have to merge the schedules together. Again, not a feat that's impossible. Just when you take a look at the open times, it's just a lot of cooperation between both buildings and things like that. So I just moved it out. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I know the question came up, there was a question about, well, to go through the lunchroom, to get to manufacturing, band, choir, art, you do have to go through the lunchroom. And again, and that we can take a look at schedules and see, but right now I know we do have a passing period during the lunch period where kids kind of come through lunch to get to explore or electives or anything?
No.
No.
Like for example, our fifth graders are outside when sixth reading, it flips. Then our fifth graders go right, they actually go right, in one of those classes, so it was not, we never have anybody passing through lunch.
Except our 4Ks. Our 4Ks pass through lunch.
Yeah.
Our rap care. I took them through lunch the other day.
Could you also at a future meeting, whether it's a 3-1 or next board meeting, just outline, you wrote it down, that music and art would have to travel? Could you just better explain to us laymen what that means and how that looks and how we would accomplish that at future?
If we were to,
If they stayed, right, because you're saying if we stayed and we cannibalized those spaces, you'd have to do something where they travel. You could just expound on that.
Sure.
So that, again, thinking, because we're making a decision potentially that is impacting those, maybe not next year, but it could be the year after. Or you could be coming back to us with the same thing next year.
Yes.
Just to better understand that. Okay, got it.
Can you, I know we talked about it for everybody else, can you talk about how it would change our report cards and our testing?
Sure, sure. The report cards, the state report cards will be coming out, in the middle of November, beginning of November, right around there. And ultimately, that takes a look at both buildings. Every school building gets a report card. If we were to move fourth grade over here, Merton Primary would not receive the same report card or report card that you currently see now. Because the report card is a combination of achievement and growth within the building. Right now, Merton Primary School gets a report card based on third and fourth grade achievement and then growth indicators from third to fourth grade. Since fourth grade would not be at Merton Primary School, they say, nope, we're cutting you off. That is a Merton Intermediate initial academic achievement indicator. So there would be no growth, which means Merton Primary School would not get a numeric report card. They would tell you probably maybe what the achievement levels were. They tell you the demographics, how many kids.
For 1 year though?
No, for every year.
Oh, okay, we would never report card for any year.
Correct. They don't look at fourth grade and say, oh, Merton Primary, because growth then would be an indicator of Merton Intermediate. So we ultimately would get one report card for Merton Intermediate, and then the district report card would look almost identical, but just with the third grade achievement indicator in there. So, so instead of 3 report cards, we currently get one for the primary, one for the intermediate, and a district one. We would get 2, but those 2 would be almost identical.
What would we be, would be a 4?
4-8. 4-8 indicator. The district, again, would be 3 through 8, because you get the third grade forward score that would go into your achievement level. That would impact that, but it would be a very small delta between those 2. So we look almost very similar to Swallow, a Richmond, a Lake Country, that only have one building. Be able to do that. So lots to think about. So I'm hearing, I've got some things to talk about and bring back to a community forum. I'm thinking probably in the next 2 weeks, we should probably set some up that first week in November to kind of set a date. Maybe we can do that at the very end of the meeting. And again, the topic would just be the movement over, and that's what the really focus would be around. We'll be able to share. Because if we did, I'd rather do it sooner than later, because that way, if we did want to start to engage in a survey or other focus groups, we would be able to have time. January will be here before we know what 2 weeks. Third grade would get rolled into the district test scores.
Yep. So would that change this building's administration to be in charge of third grade?
So I would recommend that. The other, because right now we've got a principal who's supervising staff for 560, who is responsible for 560 kids. Over here, we have a principal who's responsible for 360. And then 8, but you would subtract the 2, so they become much more similar in supervisory as well as parent communication and things like that.
So those teachers that would move here, Steve would be there.
Steve would be their supervisor, correct. One of the things when we moved back, because when we back in 2013, Lori, whatever that date was, when we moved Lori back over, again, we had that discrepancy. We had 600 kids here and 350 over there. So we had open rooms there, so we picked up 4th grade and went there, and then those became Mike's supervisory responsibility. And that was before report cards, really. We had that back in the early. So, well, thank you for the dialogue. Thank you truly for the dialogue too as well. And again, any questions, again, feel free to email and we can set up a time to talk to really make sure that any questions that people have, we can get that answered.
Okay, we're going to C and new business and that's the strategic planning process. Question on that.
Yep. So our strategic plan is up as of the end of this year. And if you've been following, we've got a lot going on in the district. And when I say a lot going on, we've got a lot of forward thinking already, which is what a strategic plan is designed to do. You've seen through, obviously, the student achievements and some updates. We've got district improvement plans that kind of highlight 5 different areas, all the way from academics to instructional approaches and really making sure our staff is developed and kids in our MLSS process. So we've got a lot going on in that avenue. We also have, last year we did approve a new curriculum instruction adoption cycle. Again, all of these components are part of the strategic plan. The other pieces is last year we did approve a 10-year facility update as well. We're also taking a look at a third of our entire policies to get redone. So again, we've got a lot of things that are forward thinking going. And I guess I'm questioning whether or not the board would like to undertake strategic planning at the same time of doing all of this work, whether it be the conversations forward thinking about 4th grade. So there's just going to be a lot of things that we're going to have to engage not only our community, but our school board in, as well as our administration and our staff. And just wondering if this is the right time to do it, or do we have enough goal work that we can continue moving forward to really set the path of the district this upcoming year. Or I would say for 2023, actually.
I would suggest that we delay the formal process of the strategic plan for a year.
I agree. Yeah, I think everything you highlighted, I think those are all positive developments. Maria coming on board and looking at our curriculum and various changes that we're undertaking and have undertook on that. The goal setting, I'll say this, the written down goal setting, I think is a great first step. And I think so all these things that we've been working on, and recognize that we've got 2 newer board members, but the board before us we're working on, I think are all positive developments for the district.
I'm going to bring this back then in April. So we can, because that way we can start to kind of pre-plan ahead and make sure that we can, if we want to continue the strategic plan in the following year, we can hit the ground running right away in September and gather our team as well. So, sounds good.
Okay, we're to D, offering exit interviews to former employees. Not interested. Yeah, so
Can I ask about it?
just a lot of water that's over the dam. Are we doing a witch hunt? That,
No, but
okay.
we have people reach out to us and some board members are not willing to
this was a trust.
I don't know what we can say and what we can't say in a closed session, so not going to talk about that in a closed session. But, in 2020, we had teachers come and parents come and talk about it, and there was a statement of, it takes time to do something. We waited 2 years. 2018, we were told to wait 2 years, and now it's 2020, and we didn't do anything, and now it's 2022. So, all you're doing.
So you think this is gonna help the process that you have set in motion?
No, I think it helps us understand what's going on, and maybe we can make adjustments in our school, and maybe make it more a culture, a place that people want to stay. I want to know why people are leaving, and that's all the way back in 2018. I mean, that was before we literally packed the house.
Okay, see, this is where you confuse me. You're looking at this trust issue between administrative and staff as an issue. But the things that we're doing as a board, we're losing trust with both our staff and our families in the district. What are we trying to prove?
It's not even about administration, it's about trying to, we literally told them, and in fact, you were the one on the tape when I watched it back, that said it takes time to help, or it takes time to do things, and we haven't done anything. So, and we've had people reach out to us, and we've shut the door on them. And before last year, we didn't have exit interviews, besides Ron, but then we had exit interviews and things changed. So I was just recommending to find out if anybody would like to reach out. And that's it.
How far do you want to go back?
Well, in 2018 is when we had the last one. So.
Last what, 2018?
2000, the last time we did it, we gave 2 people, and then 2018 is the last time we talked about it. And then 2020 was they said we had 2 years, so. 2 years. To help me with this.
I'm really struggling with the way we're acting as a board. I really am. Something like this, we'll get to some other ones here. We can't gain the trust of our community. If we lose the trust of our community, we are just beating our heads against the wall. And we hire an administrator to be the educational leader in the community, and we don't show trust to the judgment that person has. We don't trust other people. I'm frustrated. I really am. I used the analogy this morning with Ron. When you're watching the football games and you don't see the referees that are involved or anything, it's great games. Once all of a sudden, the refs are the prominent part of the game, and it's lost. We should be driving the philosophical direction of this school. We should be doing it in a transparent and open way. And if we go down this road where we're creating this sense of distrust, we're not getting anywhere.
I would be okay with not doing them if we were willing to listen to people that come.
The listening part has to go both ways though, too.
Oh, I'd be happy, I've always had an open door, anybody can go to talk to me, there's nothing,
We just heard tonight from teachers that share frustration with board
and that's, I
members.
think it's
So,
great to
so,
know.
but I think what Dean's saying is like, you're asking to solicit feedback on, the negative aspects of administration, but are you listening to the feedback you're getting, which is the negative feedback of board representation and how it's impacting our school? I don't think it sounds like that's the case. I had a number of questions written down on this. I'll just read them for the record. How many data points and contacts are we looking to make? The choice question, how far back would you go? What data are we hoping to gather that we don't already have from the current exit interviews we did? And the most recent completed, which we'll be getting information on shortly, the culture and climate survey, which asked over 30 some questions, I think, to our current teachers. So that's real-time data from, real live employees. And then what's the cost of this?
So,
And then the last thing I would say, it's been 60 days since that meeting. Either you or the person you're talking about reached out to me to talk to me. I told you back then, I have an open door policy. I'm willing to talk to anybody past or present. So it goes both ways. I appreciate you taking a stand, but I'm also going to take a stand and say, nobody's reached out to me to have that conversation. I shared at the time that it was an inappropriate time to have that conversation, but I was willing to meet and talk and listen. It's been 60 some days and nobody's come to talk to me about that specific situation. That's just for the record, if we're putting things in context.
we just have a very high turnover rate at our school.
Don't disagree.
And we have a very high turnover rate that, to me, I don't want to see our teachers leave. I know right now, it seems that I do care, I would listen to anyone that would come. I've always had an open door. And the people that have come to me, not me going to them, have come to me, something needs to be said for them. And that's what I'm trying to do. And we lost a lot of teachers. We did our exit interviews. We learned things from those exit interviews. And
what percentage of the teachers have come to you?
I'm sorry. This is our meeting, and I don't usually allow outside conversations. So, I'll be blunt again. So, the way we act as a board, you want to change the administrative staff.
but it could be completely something else, too.
I vote no on offering that, doing any more exit interviews. Somebody can make a motion one way or the other.
I would also say, 100% factual, we heard in exit interviews from folks that have left. We haven't actually heard from our administrative team and got their side of the story. We haven't actually sat down, talked with them, and had that discussion. So I think that's part of this process as well as understanding as the team, use team broadly, but ultimately Ron is who we oversee, but broadly, Ron and the administrative team, past and present, we haven't heard from them in their professional opinion about folks either. And so if we are going to continue to go down a road of seeking out feedback, it's also imperative that we get the other side as well, the administrative professional
opinion on folks that may have left.
I do want to say, in all fairness, I have had conversations with Ron about some of the people that have left, so.
I'm broadly saying as a board, we broadly reviewed the information as a board from the exit interviews. We've done that, but we haven't as a board had that Q&A and overview with Ron and or team.
Well, I would encourage that too. Like, that's something I would 100% encourage. So, in fact, that's why.
Are you willing to table it until we get that chance? You're satisfied?
Yeah.
What we heard as a board, though, not as.
So we're gonna do that in open session.
Those personnel.
Not personnel.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that I think the exit interviews are something new that has been started, and I don't necessarily see why go backwards. There is gonna be a cost to that. I would rather move forward with what is being put in place and.
That's fine. I just want to try, I know it's hard.
I get what you're saying.
Right, I just want to know the full pieces, and I would encourage people to come to me and talk to me and tell me that, because other people are, so.
That's where we get ourselves in trouble.
Okay, don't encourage it.
There's protocol. Staff should not be coming to you. Staff, if they have issues, should be going to their immediate supervisor. You've got to push those people that are coming to you aside and say, hey, there's protocol on how to do this. Then, if that staff member doesn't get satisfaction in going to their immediate supervisor, then they go to the immediate supervisor and the next supervisor up. These things should never get to the board level unless we're dealing with an appeal or something like that. You're a great mom, but you gotta realize your role as a board member.
You can't talk to people like that. I don't care if you're the president, like that is so rude to say to her. You were rude to me at a meeting, you were rude to Trish, you're so rude to people. I cannot sit here and condone it. And I don't know how other adults do. It's supposed to be a professional meeting. You can't talk to people like that. So thank you, Lindsay, for having a voice, and I'm sorry people think it's okay to talk to you like that.
But you're the pleasure of the board to do with that item D.
We're tabling it.
Okay, we're on to
But we
E.
want that meeting, we gotta discuss.
Active administrative contract renewal, possible action, administrative direction.
Okay, so, this is something that's actually a common practice at schools. It's not a crazy Merton idea. And what talking to legal, we pre-approved legal, just want to throw that out there, that administration, well, in this case would be Ron, would come and give his recommendation months before, one way or the other, and they can be closed doors, so nothing happens anyways, but it's a renewal process. That gives the board a chance to talk about it, but it also, more importantly, gives us a chance to review Ron, because that's who we are responsible for. So it is a very common practice thing to do.
You said that's, legal suggested that, so.
You just report your status, and then it's for every single person in the future. So renewal, you can tell us all the great things, and then.
It's being proactive, which would mean, by January 31st, the Board of Education would need to give formal notice to any administrator who they do not intend to either roll over or offer a new contract to. This policy, or again, the directive would direct or would guide the process for administrative renewal. That would ultimately, again, you can put a time frame, whether it's November 30th. The closed session per board policy for my final evaluation is in December. So during that December meeting is when you guys typically have decided or not to roll me forward for another contract year. We would be putting the other administrators who are up for renewal on that same time frame. And then ultimately in January, the board would approve the contracts or a rollover, whatever one was deemed necessary, instead of waiting for May or June like we've done it in the past. Because it's passive in May or June. When I say, well, if somebody's like, well, what happens if we don't approve it? It already has been approved per state statute. Very similar to a teacher contract. It's already, so when we bring you teacher contracts in June, somebody's like, well, what question do I, what about this? It's already passively happened and it has to be approval. This would put firm deadlines to administrative contract renewal. Like Lindsay said, it's, again, from my brief question and asking, it's about 50-50. It's about a 50-50 split.
And state statute would take over if we didn't.
Correct. If you do nothing, it automatic state statute.
We're under the state statute.
Correct. Yep, and we haven't done anything illegal or anything else like that. If you keep the practice the same, nothing happens. If you change the practice, you will see administrative contracts in January for new business instead of in March or May.
Sorry, Joe. I was curious.
He just is kind of.
Yeah, 30 days to digest if he does a non-renewal, digest it. You said that it would give us an opportunity to review Ron. Can you explain how that's different than, so we do a mid-year review in June and we do a December review? What's the difference between what you said and the December review? Yeah. Because we
I'm
can
not
ask
gonna
him
do
any.
personal, like, what.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying.
In this review, there is a section that's all about administration, and
Yes.
so this would give us the opportunity to see how, like, if it's following through on something, it would be a more formal, it's just a proactive way of doing it. And, we are very administrative heavy at our school, so it's just a way that they keep coming through all times. Like, it would just keep more accountability and being proactive. It's not anything that's unknown.
No, I'm not saying it's not included, but I think we could probably ask him any of those questions regardless of him bringing contracts and tools. We could ask him, talk about your process, what did you go through, right? I mean, that section of, but it's the common HR reviews. Get the wording wrong, subordinates or, folks that are underneath, right? I mean,
So it's kind of like when you put in goals, like the actual physical goals, like having those examples, things like that.
And I would argue that should have that, but that happens, because we talk about the formal, I write up a formal review in all the areas, and then I hand that to you guys in December, and then we're here and I say, hey, do you have any questions for me? They're like, okay, good, and then I sit out there and then you guys talk about whether or not a non-renewal will be written or will be issued and or the extension will be given. So
I don't think we've ever talked about that during the evaluation.
that would be the time to do it.
Right. So this would be making sure that those things happen as and completely 100% board lanes, not non-lanes.
Yeah, this is you guys. Yep.
Would existing contracts need to be rewritten for this change? Is there wording in a contract that we've already established with an employee that would be different?
Nope, because it's all, our
I
administrative.
just want to make sure we're not like gonna
Nope, it's all governed.
something forth and then all of a sudden have an employee raise a legal issue with us that we're, before we,
Again, after having the contracts reviewed as it relates to the length of it. No, because the administrative contracts basically are just models of state statute.
We're going to take action on that, or?
Yeah, I move the direct administration immediately to activate an administration contract.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So just so I understand the motion would be to move it from a passive to an active, which would mean there would be a date that would be established by, well, legally it has to be December 31st, 30 days ahead of the state statute, that I need to report out to you guys my recommendation. And then in January, you then would either go with that administrative recommendation or decide a different route. And then ultimately, we would take administrative contracts to the board for new business to be approved in January. And then you would then approve mine if that was the will of the board as well. Just so I know, because that's what it means by back 30 days. 30 days.
That's 30 days.
30 days ahead of, and on or before December 30th. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. Yep.
so just so I understand the process. So what you just said is, at some point in December, you will come to us.
Per board policy, you have a closed session
For you.
for me.
Yeah, for me. So at that time,
At
you'll-
that time.
You'll come with these new.
Correct. I would come and say, said administrator, I'm recommending renewal. I'm recommending, this is what I'm recommending for the administrative contracts that are up.
Okay, so that would be part of your normal December review
Correct.
going forward.
Yep.
Or any future administrator.
Correct.
Yep, no, I don't mean anything by that. Don't read into that. Because we're committing future boards to this.
Correct.
Again, just committing future boards to this. So then after our December review, we would see these contracts come in open session in January, or would it be another closed session?
Open session in January. That's where they would be approved in open session. So
And that's normal.
that's normal.
procedure.
Yep, that'd be normal. Yep.
Or there'd be a non-renewal.
Or there's a non-renewal, and then that happens in and then there's state
Yes,
statute.
and then there's a process
Govern that.
governed by state statute that.
Correct. Yep.
Our employees have afforded to them.
Correct. Yep. Exactly. And I guess I would recommend, and obviously you guys are directing me to do this, I would recommend that we have policy language that we put in, and that would be underneath the 2000s. And I've got that working already with Bob, to get that in. He recommended that if you are gonna move towards an active, instead of administrative directive and telling me, he recommended, let's put a policy in for future boards, future administrators, and things like that. And I do believe something came through today, so I can have a policy to the policy committee next time we meet, and then I can just make that formal practice, because then if we do a first review in November, and then a final review in December, everything will be all set to go. And then I'll just make that as part of my closed session review with you guys to make that recommendation administratively ahead of the policy. Everybody know what we're voting on?
Okay. So we have a motion and a second, right? All in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. We have a state statute, so that's one. Okay,
I would just say that a lot of these policies haven't been updated since 2000 or 99, and it's time.
okay, we are on to F, the 6-8 SEL program remediate.
All right, so, a lot of you probably don't know, but all of us know now, there's a major issue on how SEL opt-out study hall is being run. It's being run as a silent study hall. And the way study halls are run in this school are not silent study halls. They're level 1 study halls. State. Study hall right now.
We have two different study halls. We have a study hall that is regular, that is scheduled, that students have elected to take a study hall. Mr. Newcomer continues to work with those supervisors. They are instructional assistants. They are the regular instructional assistants, and it meets daily. The study hall framework that we have for SEL, we've modeled it. First of all, a couple things. Modeled after the human growth and development opt-out, where it says specifically in the permission slip that student will go and read to the silent study hall. So we have been working with Steve. There are also many supervisors who function and who cover that. And he made a decision, and I support the decision, to have it be quiet for 20 to 30 minutes, for once a week, for 32 weeks, or whatever it might be. We have addressed this with two parents, and that is, that's where we're at. So we've heard from 2 out of the 60s, approximately 60.
I've heard SEL too, so parents also, I know you know.
Yeah, we received
Yeah, we've got a letter from NLT now, and
from LT, who's LT? Oh, no letter. Oh, okay, yeah, and I did, just so you know, I do have a meeting set up with them next Wednesday, as soon as we can connect.
I'm sorry, the optics are horrible. They're horrible. I can't believe I'm even talk about this. I mean, when you have kids in the SEL class, and when they're being talked to and say, hey, aren't you glad you're not in that silent study hall? And, you know, they're having games, they're getting candy.
Their parents chose for them to opt out.
Oh, exactly. I haven't heard that. Steve, have you heard anything?
I mean, Lindsay and I were talking about it.
We haven't heard anything, but we haven't heard anything, and again, I would recommend everybody come and just bring them right to us so we can have a conversation with them.
I mean, parent, you know.
2 kids.
So, I mean,
Let's just, what do you want us to do?
I want study halls to be, SEL study hall to be run the same as the other study halls. Right. That's not that difficult. I can't, like I say, I can't even believe I'm even bringing this up.
I can't believe it's been brought up.
I know, I can't believe it.
Because this is micromanaging.
I know it is. This is micromanaging at its best.
So then nip it in the bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't bring it to the board.
Administration has had, what, almost 3 weeks to see it's wrong. The optics are kids that opted out of SEL for their parents' choices. It's getting taken out on them. No, that's the
Tell
optics.
your asking
I'm
for
sorry.
people who need SEL help.
And just saying, the accusation that we would take anything out on the children.
I don't.
Is,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Awful.
That is the optics. That is the
How
optics
no,
of the
not.
community right now.
And I would hope,
It's not that.
and I guess, Troy, I just would ask that if anyone ever hears that about a staff member and or an administration or a decision that was made that we are purposely trying to harm children, please, I would hope that this team and our team would be able to look at them and say, that would never happen. That is not the case. Please go talk to Mr. Newcomer, as he will explain why it is that we're doing this. So, you charged us with we did what you asked. We created, and now we created a study hall that we've said that it's like, hey guys, it's gonna be quiet. We're gonna have a quiet study hall because we have multiple We have multiple people who are going to be doing this, and we want to make sure that the expectation is consistent from week to week. It is consistent with our other opt-outs for human growth and development. That's been happening for 5+ years, and I've never had a concern for that, or I've never heard a concern about what the kids are doing in human growth and development, that it needs to be similar or identical to what is happening in the opt-out, which is what was in the no left turn. Indication is that we need to make sure that everything is equal, and again, there's a lot of things there, and I'll be talking to Ally about that, but please do not accuse our administrative team of ever doing.
You are.
You just
I just did.
Optics are people's reality.
And I would hope that you would, Troy, we've worked together enough, and I hope that to say we would never do anything to harm a child. Absolutely not.
These are folks that have dedicated their careers and just honored a 30-year, teacher that they're doing stuff that I can't do. I'm not built to be a teacher. They're dedicated their life to be a teacher, to insinuate, perceived or otherwise, that these teachers are taking it out on kids. I just have to stand up for the teachers and say, I'm gonna use a teacher's name, but I think I've got a good relationship with him. I said, AJ and I do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. But that doesn't mean I think he's a bad teacher. So I struggle with the insinuation for our teachers that they're somehow taking it out on kids. This is their profession, what they chose, because that's what they love to do, and they're built for it. They're God made for it. I struggle with that a lot. It's a real reaction from action can be the other way too.
Silence is not harmful to your children.
Okay, we are on to future meetings.
Am I able to say anything or not? Steve, you want to? I'm not on that.
I can allow.
You want to hear Steve? Steve, go ahead.
I spent 28 years as an educator. Hopefully that you did some research to know that if you check my references say that every decision I make is best for kids. And, first of all, when we have, when we have two different rooms, I understand that maybe the SEL is not, even in that letter that somebody just sent today, well, some of the lessons in there are being played as far as when you're looking at first step, they're doing some certain things, which is fine. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're doing. A study hall, my whole thing was, a lot of parents wanted a study hall so their kids could get the work done. That's what I heard. And what I decided was, it's pretty important for them to be able to maximize that time as well. And if you ever had to supervise a study hall in middle school, it's not the easiest thing to do. So we wanted to make sure we just made it clear. There's semantics around, okay, this one study hall is run by an educational assistant. And actually that study hall in level 1, that matrix was made in 2014. Another reason that I have, as you hired me as part of my work, is to do around gathering a team together. Because one of the things I've heard is we do need to work on some things as far as tightening some things up. And if you know, I would welcome anybody to come visit our SEL study halls. I was in there, and we've had 3 weeks of this right now, and I've had, like I said, 2 complaints, and I've had a conversation with both people, but I was in there in the second week playing soft music, kids were working. I thought I owed it to those people to do that. I apologize if the semantics seem wrong. We're not trying to penalize anybody. I would like that to be a maximum time. And honestly, I would like to work with our instructional assistants for our other study hall to maximize that as well. And that also has to be very quiet because that's in our learning lounge that's right outside of 4 language arts classrooms that are learning. So that can't be loud either. And so, I just want to hone in what Andrew said because, I have to defend a staff that feels like, we're doing a culture and climate survey and now we have to feel like we're in eggshells because we did a study hall wrong. I think that sends the wrong message because the message is nobody has come to check out a study hall. Nobody has seen that to say what that study hall looks like. And that's very frustrating for me as a staff member that just got hired and now this is what we don't trust my decision making within 9 weeks. That's pretty frustrating.
Wow.
Anything on the future meeting agenda?
We've got, we'll purchase Chromebooks, yes.
Oh, that's.
Yep. So, due to the growth in Merton, yep, the new one. Due to the growth at Merton Primary School, and actually across the district, we have deployed all of our Chromebooks. And, through our educational program, and what we expect, our 5K right now are 3-to-1. So, asking the board for 25 more Chromebooks to outfit our 5K, so they can be 2-to-1. And right now, we've only gathered one quote. Jim's in the process of gathering more. The first quote, it was the same price as we purchased.
It's like $1.50 more.
$1.50 more, but like a year ago almost.
Yep.
We purchased them really early to make sure they were here. So, just to kind of, and again, we worked with April to work this in. The administration is recommending the board make a motion to approve the purchase of 25 Chromebooks, not to exceed $8,500.
So, second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion is carried. Future meeting agenda, November 28th.
6 o'clock.
That work?
For a regular one? Yep. And we've got a list of some things there that we'll do as well. And the auditors are going to come.
Okay. That's all exciting.
And also, we will be proposing a 23-24 calendar. Arrowhead did approve theirs, so we'll be bringing that to.
December 19th, what's all right for everybody? January 30th? Any agenda items that we'd like to have on there?
If there's no agenda items, do you want to set a date for or I can hold the board as it relates to a board workshop or a community forum specifically around the possibility of moving the country over here? Is there maybe that first week in November, or I don't know what's good for everybody?
Oh, what's yours, is it? Sorry. Some of us haven't gotten to here yet.
I appreciate you always pulling us
I
to
can
figure
hold
out one way.
in daylight savings time. I'll pull the board and it's for a 6 o'clock start. Does that work? Jim will just have the one agenda item and again, please, if you have any questions, I know you guys gave me some feedback and some things to think about, all the way from play equipment to any of the specialists on the move and some other options. We'll narrow some of that down. But again, truly, if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me those, and we can either talk about it. Andrew, you had an idea about putting like a question box or something in. Is it for?
Yeah, but if we're gonna do some sort of a survey after a community forum and whatever next board meeting, good. But if we're not, let's have somewhere we can solicit the feedback and try to understand, again, like, why do you support this? Why don't you support this? We can get kind of like, again, buckets of where people's heads are at.
I just like to share all the information and then people can make that logical decision.
Is 2 weeks enough time?
I just gotta do it work.
We can do, maybe we'll do 3 weeks, maybe we'll get it after daylight savings time.
You
I'll
have
pull
some
the board.
contracts for us to sign, me and the clerk. Okay. Cover that in future contract. Okay.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, meeting adjourned.